Chapter 24. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The auction was forced to stop on the spot, and a group of people stayed at the scene to wait for news. While he was thinking, a worker came to Luocchio's side. Accompanied by him, Luocchio and Yu Yi came to the side door of the venue and found that there were already several people waiting there. Luocchio was familiar with Zhang Qingrui, a fat man in his early 30s, and a woman in her 50s. Luocchio, this is Miss Dong, the host of the auction, and this is Manager Han, who is in charge of the scene. Zhang Qingrui quickly explained, I'm sorry, your friend's item was stolen halfway. In any case, we will get it back as soon as possible. That is to say, you haven't found it yet? Luocchio asked after a moment of silence. The woman, surnamed Dong, looked at Luocchio from head to toe. They had been watching the auction through the backstage video. The first person who bid a high price for the jade plate left a deep impression on them. Zhang Qingrui seemed to know the other party, so she had some feelings for him. The other party bid for the item, but it was stolen, so she felt sorry for him. Therefore, Ms. Dong had to say kindly, Mr. Luo, please don't worry. We have called the police. The thief can't escape. Luocchio was stunned and said without thinking, Don't tell me he walked out of the venue. Zhang Qingrui felt embarrassed. I'm afraid that guy has a plan. We found a fire passage, and the lock of the door was broken. Then someone saw the thief leave on a motorcycle from the east wing, so he must have prepared in advance. Luocchio shook his head. If he was in his own city, he could probably go to the man's side with a thought, but he was not so flexible in a city. He didn't have a good idea at the moment. Besides, he didn't lose anything. Although the bidding was successful, he hadn't paid yet. I don't care what method you use. We will leave by plane tonight. You'd better give me an explanation before the evening. Yu suddenly said indifferently, It's your fault that the security here was lax. We like that jade tablet, so want to buy it. There's a saying in the East that goes, no amount of money can buy a good heart. This isn't something that can be solved with just compensation. We understand. Manager Han quickly said with an apologetic smile, Even if you are in a hurry to leave tonight, our treasure auction house will not let this go unresolved. Once we can find the jade token, we will deliver it to you no matter what method we use. Ms. Dong and Qingrui Zhang both thought to themselves, This woman has such a strong aura that makes people unable to raise their heads. This was not something that any rich family's daughter could do. Zhang Qingrui couldn't help but look at Luocchio with a troubled expression. Luocchio could only turn to Yu Yi and say, Since the item has been taken away, there's nothing we can do. We're not interested in the rest. Well, Zhang Qingrui, you should have my phone number. If there's any news here, just let me know. Yu Yi, there's still some time. Let's go somewhere else to have a look. Do you want to come here again? The club's servant girl nodded obediently to Luocchio, but when she looked at Zhang Qingrui and the other two, her eyes were as sharp as the Siberian wind. Seeing the two walking towards the exit, Ms. Dong sighed subconsciously. Qingrui, who is this girl? I've seen a lot of powerful women in my life, but I've never seen one like this. I don't even dare to take a deep breath. Zhang Qingrui smiled bitterly. Annie Dong, to be honest, I'm also confused. I only know that she's Luocchio's friend. She should be his girlfriend. Then that guy? Annie Dong asked curiously. Zhang Qingrui didn't want to say more. He's my classmate. Although we're classmates, we're not close. Annie Dong nodded. She was smart enough to know that Zhang Qingrui was being perfunctory. But this made her more curious about the identity of this young man and woman. Annie Dong shook her head. Let's find a lost item first. I, Dong Minghua, am not a woman who will be bullied. Humph. Luocchio called a taxi with the app. While waiting outside the venue, Yu Yi said softly, Master, I didn't do my job well. I'm sorry. Luocchio gave a start. It's nothing. After all, not everyone can foresee this happening. Besides, there are so many surveillance cameras here, that guy can't escape. Anyway, the deposit is returned to you, so we didn't lose anything. But if it wasn't for that guy, the jade plate would be yours now. Luocchio said happily. But isn't it more interesting now? Why did that guy take the jade plate? Does he know something about the jade plate that no one else knows? This is much more valuable than simply getting the jade plate. The taxi driver had started to stop. Luaccio smiled. Let's go. I probably know which direction that guy escaped to. Yi opened her mouth confusedly. Luaccio took out the jade plate in his hand. This thing has been hot since just now. When I touched it, I felt something. He walked towards the taxi, muttering, maybe I don't need to reduce my lifespan to know what the jade plate is in a remote cargo hold. The man wearing black glasses was holding a white jade tablet in a daze. He kept repeating, I found you, I finally found you. I found you, I found you. He rubbed the small jade plate again and again, without knowing how much time had passed, as if he was the only one left in the world with this white jade plate. Suddenly, he heard the sound of footsteps. He looked up and saw a man and a woman appear in front of him out of nowhere. The man suddenly panicked, holding the white jade plate in his hand tightly. He seemed to have some impression of this young man who suddenly appeared. He had seen this young man at the auction, so he said subconsciously, It's you. Luaccio was a little disappointed. I've been waiting for you here for half an hour, and then I didn't hear anything other than I found you. I found you, constantly repeating, I found you. I had no choice but to come out. What do you want to do? Do you want to take it away from me? The man became more nervous, like a lion or tiger protecting its cub. Luaccio took out his white jade plate, shaking it. Can you tell me what's the secret of this thing? The man gave a start, then said with ecstasy, I knew it. I knew it. There's another one. I felt it when I saw you. I felt it. Sure enough, it's on you. Give it to me. The man suddenly rushed towards Luaccio like a madman. But before he could get it, you had already put it on the ground. The man painfully covered his stomach because of the violent impact. He wanted to vomit. Master, he's just an ordinary person. Yi whispered in Luaccio's ear. Luaccio thought for a while, squatting down. Sir, I don't mean any harm. I just want to know what this thing is. Also, I want you to understand that this thing was bought by us at the auction, so it should belong to us in theory. But you snatched it away. The man gasped for breath, saying with difficulty, They belong to me. Not you, not any of you. Luaccio frowned. As far as I know, the jade plate you snatched originally belonged to Guyu Zhai. Then it was sent to the auction. As for the one in my hand, I'm afraid it's not yours, right? It's mine. The man suddenly opened his eyes. They all belong to me. 500 years ago, they all belonged to me. Luaccio gave a start. 500 years ago, the man suddenly smiled bitterly. Do you believe in past and present lives? Yin 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 PS1. The Z-Gang card really has a Z-Gang card. In history, there was a very famous jade craftsman called Lu Z-Gang in the Ming Dynasty. Well, this is a fictional story, so although it's a Z-Gang card, please don't take it personally. After all, it's just a story. If there's any similarity, it's purely fictional, probably laugh PS2. You woke up early in the morning to write. Don't you want to give me a recommendation vote? PS3. I can't afford to play with red packets, and I don't want to play with red packets. Because he felt that the recommendations and collections that were obtained this way would lose the original flavor that they should have. But I still wish you all get more red packets, because I will also pick up the money on the ground. Laugh. Chapter 25. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. There are monsters and Taoist cultivators. In the magical Eastern countries, there were both past and present lives. Ordinary people might not believe it. However, Luaccio was the kind of person who would believe it without any proof. Yi said that he would be able to see through people's hearts. Luaccio was not sure whether it would be true in the future, but he felt that this man did not speak. Just like when he looked at this man in the eyes at the auction, he did not feel any malice from this man. He helped the man up and touched the other white jade in his hand. He began to listen to this man's story. This man was 34 years old. His name was Su Haud. He used to be an unmarried courier in a nearby transportation company. When he was young, he had a strange dream. In a magnificent hall, he saw the angry face of the emperor and the ferocious face of the guards with swords. When he had nightmares, the old man used an ancient prescription to drive away the evil spirits, but the effect was not obvious. As he grew older, Su Haud would have more and more dreams, and the things in his dreams became more and more real. Finally, when he was 30 years old, he knew what this long dream was and what he had. "So, you're the maker of this pair of jade pendants?" Luocio looked at Su Hao in surprise. "The jade maker of the Ming dynasty?" Su Hao smiled bitterly. "You don't believe it?" I didn't believe it myself at first. But not only this pair of jade pendants, but also the other products that have been excavated, I remember them clearly. I recognize them. I recognize them. Su Hao caressed the white jade pendants in his hand and showed a trace of obsession. "I remember every step, from the raw stone to the polishing, carving, and engraving." Luocio pondered. "Since Mr. Su knows that this is your past and present life, why do you still hold on to this white jade pendant? You're already in the modern era and have family and friends. Aren't you afraid of taking risks?" "I don't know." Su Hao shook his head and said with a painful expression, "I was confused and hesitant. I've always been hesitant. But when I saw the white jade tablet at the venue, it was as if I was possessed. I couldn't control myself at all. I knew that I was Su Hao, not an ancient person from 500 years ago. However, another voice also told me that I couldn't just watch Xinjiang be bought by someone else. We've been separated for 500 years. I don't know when we'll meet again." "Third madam." Su Hao let out a wry smile and sighed. "I used to be a master of jade crafting. I've been obsessed with jade all my life, and I've always been proud of my talent. That year, His Majesty Emperor Xianzong summoned me to the palace and ordered me to make a pair of white jade tablets and engrave a scroll of Taoist scripture into them. However, I can't read the Taoist scripture directly. I can only ask someone to read it beside me. And Sanyang was the one who was sent by Emperor Xianzong to read to me. It was only later that I found out that third madam wasn't an ordinary palace maid. She was the emperor's concubine. Moreover, before entering the palace, Sanyang had gone to the mountains to learn Tao. Emperor Xianzong wanted immortality, so he went to the mountains to ask Old Immortal for help. At that time, Old Immortal agreed to the emperor's request and let Sanyang follow him to the palace. In the eyes of outsiders, Sanyang was the emperor's concubine, but in fact, she was a cultivator who taught the emperor. This pair of white jade tablets was found in the East Sea in the past life of a strange stone. It had magical powers. Sanyang asked the emperor to carve the strange stone into a jade tablet and inscribe a passage of the great jade emperor's Heart Seal Sutra that she had been practicing. The emperor wore it on his body and often recited it while meditating. Su Hao's voice suddenly became low. During those days, Sanyang was my companion. She was originally an otherworldly person, but she met me. It was my fault for messing up her Tao heart. However, those days were the happiest days of my life. Unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. The day of the completion of the white jade tablets came. I knew that when the tablets were completed, Sanyang would return to the emperor's side. I also knew that even if we loved each other deeply, there was no way for us to be together. Su Hao sighed and said, "I secretly engraved Sanyang's name and mine on this pair of jade tablets. I hoped that when Sanyang saw it, she would feel a little comforted." As he said, Su Hao spread out the white jade tablets in his hand. "This is engraved with my usual signature. The one in your hand is more secretive and needs light to show it. It's Sanyang's name. It's the most common thing for jade craftsmen to sign their names on their products. Especially me, I had already regarded signing my name as the most common thing because I was the best craftsman at that time. But I neglected that this was for the emperor. How could the emperor wear someone else's name on his body all the time? The emperor not only found my name, but also Sanyang's name. He was furious at that time." Su Hao said in a hoarse voice. "Only then did I know that the emperor wanted immortality, but he also fell in love with Sanyang at first sight. The emperor wanted to kill me, and Sanyang begged for mercy for me. In a fit of anger, His Majesty invited a Taoist demon to inject Sanyang's 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls into this pair of white jade tablets. Then, he beheaded me outside the palace. My body and head were separated and sent to the southeast, where my real body was beheaded. I hate it so much. I swear that even if I become a ghost, I will not let it go. Even if my head is still in the womb, I will kill the emperor with my own hands and get back my Sanya. But the emperor is dead, and I don't know where the jade tablets are. I have been looking for it, one life after another. I don't know how many times I've been reincarnated, but I finally found it. Suhaud's eyes suddenly changed. He grabbed Luocchio's arm with both hands and said ferociously, "Give me the jade tablets. I want to release Sanyang. 500 years. A full 500 years." Her soul was separated and sealed in 2 small jade tablets. Do you know how miserable she is? This behavior did not make Luocchio angry. He could feel the anger and sorrow in Suhaud's heart at this moment. But this behavior angered Yu Yi. She directly slapped Suhaud away and made him fall to the ground. As for the jade tablet in his hand, it rolled to the side. Suhaud was shocked at this time. He rolled and crawled to pick up the jade tablet. But at this time, the jade tablet suddenly rose out of thin air and flew to the other side. Finally, it fell into the hands of an old man. The old man was accompanied by a young man. When the white jade tablet was in his hand, the old man said in a low voice, "This should belong to my sect. It seems that the records are correct." "It's you." Suhaud obviously recognized this old man. He was the one who saved him at the auction. Luocchio also recognized him. At this time, the old man's face suddenly turned red. He shouted in a low voice, "Return the jade tablet in your hand to me." Almost at the same time, Luocchio felt that his body became very heavy. The surrounding air seemed to be pressing against him. Suddenly, he felt that his breathing became somewhat rapid. "How dare you touch my master? You are courting death." Chapter 26. Genius remembers love, go, go, go little in 1 second. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. After the monster, Luocchio met the mysterious power of the ancient East again in a short time. A monk. The old man gave him a strange sense of oppression at the beginning, but the pressure soon disappeared. It was not because of Yu Yi, but because of the connection between his soul and the altar buried in the club. It was just like the descriptions of liches that he had read in some Western fantasy novels. Liches were immortal because they hid their hearts in their phylacteries. As long as their hearts were fine, they were immortal. This could also be applied to Luocchio. But it was not the heart, but the more illusory soul. Luoccio's soul was in the altar of the club. It was fine to say that he was imprisoned, but it was also fine to say that he was protected. Therefore, as long as the altar existed and Luocchio existed for a long time, theoretically, he could be considered immortal. "Yu Yi, can you deal with this old man?" Luocchio suddenly asked. Yu Yi said proudly, "He's just a useless old man. How dare he threaten the owner with his spirit? I'll deal with him." It was not clear what kind of puppet Yu Yi was defined as by the alchemist who made Yu Yi, but since she could kill the Eastern monk, it was obviously not as simple as doing housework and greeting customers. The old man said the white jade plate belonged to his sect. "I also want to know." Luocchio said, "Don't be too heavy-handed." Yu Yi nodded. Once again, a chilling look appeared in her eyes. An invisible and unfathomable spiritual power burst out all of a sudden. Luocchio didn't feel it clearly, probably because his ability hadn't reached the level it should be. But Yang Taizi personally felt the real meaning of the so-called reckless behavior. Love go little, say, W. Chundu Yuye's strong mental pressure. Yang Taizi saw mountains of swords and seas of flames, as if he was under the wailing of thousands of ferocious ghosts. He guarded a little bit of peace and quiet in his fate altar. In Eastern cultivation, the most important thing was the life spirit. If the life spirit was damaged, the best-case scenario would be Qigong deviation. In the worst-case scenario, it was possible that the cultivator would never be reincarnated. In just an instant, the old man once again realized the huge difference between the two. He couldn't help but regret going to the toilet in the Taoist temple used for cultivation on mountain. But there was no other way. This white jade token was an important item passed down by his sect. As a descendant of his sect, he had the obligation to take back the white jade token. If it was just an ordinary treasure that had nothing to do with the sect, the old man would have already seen how terrifying this bizarre woman was back at the auction venue. He definitely wouldn't want to court death. Wait a minute. Please wait a moment. Fellow Taoist, this pair of white jade tokens indeed belong to my sect. I mean no harm. I just wanted to scare you. Young Taizi hurriedly shouted. How could he care about his face at this moment? Cultivating the Tao, cultivating the Tao, cultivating longevity. If he were to die like this in this place, how would he have the face to meet his ancestors? Why couldn't cultivators judge the situation and size up the situation? Why did they have to be stubborn to the end? This was called following the path of fate. If you knew it was impossible, you wouldn't do it. If you really thought that everyone was born to be the protagonist and believed in the saying, don't be a coward, fight directly, then no one would know even if you died tragically. That year during the war, he and a group of people escaped to the mountain and disturbed a Taoist who didn't care about worldly affairs. Coincidentally, they were accepted into the sect of the old man. After a period of time, a group of senior and junior brothers had some achievements in cultivation and had extraordinary abilities. They all went down the mountain and wanted to make a career in the troubled world. They didn't want longevity, nor could they bear the hardships of cultivation. They just wanted to enjoy a lifetime of glory and wealth. But young Taizi was different. He knew how to judge the situation and size up the situation. He knew that although his abilities were much better than ordinary people, there were cannons and grenades everywhere in the troubled world. How could a body of flesh and blood resist them easily? Besides, it was stupid to think that he could dominate the world with just some superficial knowledge. Young Taizi didn't go down the mountain, but chose to stay with his master. Many years later, he had obtained the true inheritance of his master. But his senior and junior brothers had already died in the war, leaving no bones. They could only build a simple cenotaph. As the saying goes, everything can be discussed. Don't be arrogant and willful because of petty benefits. When it's time to be a coward, you should be a coward. As the saying goes, there's still a long way to go. Who knows what will happen in the future? Taking things slowly was the truth of life. Therefore, young Taizi completely lowered his posture. In the secular world, these Taoists were mysterious and should be respected. However, in the world of Taoists, a little bit of strength was a little bit of strength. A little bit of difference was the difference between heaven and earth. It was not a shameful thing to lower one's head to a stronger opponent. Luocio waved his hand to stop Yi. Seeing an old man being bullied like this, he didn't feel much guilt in his heart. In fact, he especially disliked those guys who took advantage of their seniority. Generation after generation was different. This was probably the mentality of most young people. But it didn't mean that they couldn't respect the elders, but the elders should be respected. If the first impression was already bad, there would be an invisible and intangible barrier between people when they started to pay New Year's greetings. Suhao told me a story that I can believe. Luocio pondered. But what reason do you have to make me believe that this pair of white jade tokens is from your sect? Seeing that there was room for negotiation, young Taizi hurriedly said, The High Jade Emperor's Heart Seal Sutra is engraved on this pair of jade tokens. But it's not the ordinary sutra that is handed down today, but an inner part. I can read some of it silently. If this guy is really a jade craftsman, he'll definitely recognize it and think that he can distinguish the real one. Luocio said indifferently, Then let's have a try. Soon after, young Taizi recited a few sentences in his mind. It was probably something he recited randomly, which was incoherent and unclear. But Luocio carefully saw that Suhao had some slight changes after hearing it. Unexpectedly, after young Taizi finished reciting, Suhao insisted that this old man just wanted to take the jade tokens for himself. Benefactor, I've saved you once. You can't be so ungrateful. Young Taizi was furious when he heard Suhao's words. God is watching from above. God, Suhao sneered. If there's really such a thing, why didn't you pity me when I was wandering in the human world all these years? Why didn't you pity Sanyang when she was split into 3 parts and 7 spirits by a demon? You're telling me that God is watching from above? Bah. Young Taizi said, That year, the founder let Sanyang enter the palace to help Emperor Xianzong cultivate Taoism. He intended to let her gain experience in the human world, sharpen herself, and polish her Taoist heart. Who would have thought that her heart would be moved and she would have an affair with you, angering the emperor? You're so arrogant because of your talent that you engrave the evidence of your crime on the jade tokens. You deserve to be beheaded. San Yang and I truly love each other. Why would we care about the illusory immortality? You cultivators are so pure and simple. You're simply dehumanizing. You're just a group of cold-blooded animals who don't understand the true love of others. Give me back the jade tokens. Suhoud suddenly became crazy and rushed towards the old man. Luochio felt a bit annoyed when he saw this. He originally thought that he could understand the mystery of Taoism in the East, but it turned out to be such a melodramatic drama. He shook his head and turned to Yu Yi, saying, "These people are noisy. Shut them up and give me the jade tokens." Yu Yi didn't have any scruples anymore, since the master had spoken. The mysterious puppet created by the ancient alchemy suddenly released a powerful force. With a cold snort, Yang Taizi, Suhoud, and a young man beside him all screamed and fell to the ground. They held their heads and showed a painful expression. Yu Yi waved at Yang Taizi, and the jade tokens in his hand flew out. Yu Yi caught the jade tokens and sent them to Luochio. Luochio held the 2 jade tokens and looked at the different expressions of the 3 people on the ground. He said indifferently, "I'd like to hear what San Yang has to say." He gently put the 2 jade tokens together. "If you're still alive, if you know that there's an infatuated person looking for you for hundreds of years, and if you know that the descendants of your sect are also here, then show yourself." At this moment, the 2 pieces of white jade plates that were put together lit up. 2 streams of green smoke came out from the jade plates, circled in the air, and finally merged into one. It gradually took shape. Ha 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 ha! 500 years! This old Taoist can finally see the light of day. The one who showed up was not San Yang, but an unkempt and dirty-looking lunatic. Damn, it was another old man. Luochio was stunned and cursed. Fuck. Yin 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 yin. Chapter 27. A genius remembers love in 1 second / small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Evil Taoist, it's you. Suhoud stood there in a daze, his lips trembling slightly and his face turning pale. What came out of the white jade token was not San Yang, but one of his enemies. He did not know whether he should feel sad or angry. Even Yang Taizi showed a surprised expression, muttering to himself, "How could this be? How could this be? Is the secret record passed down by the sect fake? Is this not the real High Jade Emperor Heart Seal Sutra? No, the Jade token does contain the High Jade Emperor Heart Seal Sutra. However, all of this is not what you know." The old man in the green smoke suddenly sneered. "You, San Yang, you made me suffer 500 years of confinement. I, Taiyinzi, swore that if I break out of this cage, I'll make sure you'll never be reincarnated. You're Taiyinzi, the traitor who was expelled by the sect?" Yang Taizi's expression became more awkward. "Traitor? Ha! Ridiculous." The one called Taiyinzi laughed crazily. "Ridiculous. If you San Yang, that bitch, framed me, how could I be expelled by the sect? That evil woman should have been cut into pieces." Hearing this, Suhoud couldn't stand it anymore, shouting angrily, "Evil Taoist, you're not allowed to insult San Yang. You made us separate for hundreds of years, and now you're slandering her. I won't let you go." Maybe because he was too scared, even if he used all his courage to say these words. Suhoud still couldn't help trembling. Taiyinzi sneered, "Idiot, do you think that evil woman really loves you so much? I'll tell you, that bitch is good at scheming. She pretended to be in love with you, but in fact, she just treated you as a furnace to cultivate her heart. The deeper you love her, the more she cherishes you. When you two can't be together, the great sadness you'll face when you're separated is her real purpose." "Nonsense. You're talking nonsense." "Nonsense? Ha ha ha." Taiyinzi laughed sorrowfully. "Look at me. 500 years ago, I couldn't accept the enmity of being framed by that demoness. When she left the mountain and entered the palace, I followed her all the way. How did she make you fall in love with her? How did she use the true love between the two of you to cultivate her Tao heart of the great oblivion? I saw it all clearly. You're the only one who doesn't know. Do you really think you've met the love of your life? Do you really think she loves you and is willing to give herself to you under the moonlight? Let me tell you, that was just the lowest level of illusion. You're just daydreaming. Idiot. Idiot. Did you know that the moment you were ordered to be executed by the emperor, you, San Yin, succeeded? She saw your head being separated from your body with her own eyes, and she shed tears of sorrow. At that moment, her great oblivion had reached the small perfection stage. Her power has increased greatly, and I am not her opponent at all. Emperor Xianzong asked me to deal with you, San Yang, but I was no match for her. In the end, my 3 souls and 7 spirits were beaten out by her and sealed in this pair of white jade plates. She pretended to be me, took the white jade plates, and handed them to Emperor Xianzong. Then, she faked her death and escaped. From then on, she was free and unfettered. Humph! Everyone was in her trap. Only you, an idiot, didn't give up after 500 years and turned into a vengeful spirit. Don't you think you're an idiot? You lied to me. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Su Hao rushed madly towards Taiyinzi in the green smoke. He waved his arms and fists, but he couldn't hit the green smoke that didn't have a body at all. Finally, he was exhausted and fell to the ground. With a hoarse voice and an infatuated expression, he kept repeating, "You lied to me. You lied to me. You lied to me. San Yang is true to me. She's sincere. I lied to you? Idiot. If I lied to you, why am I the one trapped in the jade plates instead of you, San Yan?" Tianzi sneered and said, "Think about it carefully. Every time you two made love, did you feel tired? Did your consciousness become muddled? When a man and a woman make love, it should be a time of passion. You didn't drink, nor did you have any illness. How could you be muddled every time? You could have figured it out by using your brain. But you fell too deep into it and didn't want to think about it carefully. Now, the vengeful spirit hasn't left after 500 years. Isn't it because of your ignorance? You lied to me." Su Hao suddenly stood up. This time, he didn't rush madly towards Chu Li. Instead, he rushed madly out of the cargo hold. "Love go, Shao say W." Chu Luochio frowned and looked at Yu Yi. Yu Yi stretched out her hand and flicked her finger. A faint light suddenly shot into Su Hao's back, and he fainted on the ground. Then it became awkward again. Let's take a look at the scene. A century-old ghost who came out of the jade plate, a vengeful spirit from 500 years ago, and the sect behind this matter. No matter how he looked at it, it was a family matter. It had nothing to do with Luochio. No, the only thing that was related was that one of the jade plates belonged to the club, and the other one belonged to Luochio in name. He had already bought at the auction. Therefore, both jade plates were his. Yu San Yin is the representative of ancient scheming bitches. Luochio thought for a while and broke the silence. However, it was clear that such words that broke the silence only made the situation more awkward. At this time, Tai Inzi suddenly shouted madly, "Boy, shatter the white jade token in your hand. My 3 souls fell into the hands of that butterfly demon. I know about you. This is not your territory, or I'll let you die a horrible death. Are you trying to scare me?" Luochio said indifferently, "If I didn't let you out, do you think you could get out of the jade plate? I even lost 10 minutes of time." Shaking his head, the glimmer of the white jade token suddenly disappeared. The cyan smoke seemed to be sucked into the jade token and split into 2. Finally, Tainzi let out a mournful wail and disappeared. Now, there were only Yang Taizi, his disciple, and Luochio who were still conscious. Luochio suddenly waved his hand. A black flame condensed in his palm, condensing into a black card without any golden seal. The black card then shot out, inserting into the cement floor in front of Yang Taizi's feet. Luochio said blankly, "These 2 jade plates are also mine. If you want to take them back, you have to exchange with something of equal value." The moment Luochio finished his words, Yang Taizi felt a strong spiritual power sweeping over him, shaking his consciousness out. Without any reaction, Yang Taizi fainted on the ground. "Master, what should we do with this Su Hao?" Yi asked. Luochio said indifferently, "I don't have any enmity with him. What's there to deal with him? He's just a poor guy. Yi said, Master, don't you want to make a deal with him? His soul has been floating in a mortal world for 500 years. It's also a good thing. Luocio had his own standards, shaking his head. If he really needs it, he'll come to us, right? And Luocio smiled, leaving after showing off. It's really exciting. Yi didn't say anything. They left the cargo ship, heading for the airport. Not long after, Yang Taizi woke up leisurely. Looking at the black card beside him, he subconsciously drew it out and held it in his hand, remaining silent. His disciple saw this after waking up, asking curiously, Master, what's this? Yang Taizi didn't look sure, saying hesitantly, I'm afraid it's a legend that has been passed down for a long time. Is the legend true? Master, according to your order, the white jade plate has been sent anonymously by express delivery. If it's in the same city, it should be sent back to the woman surnamed Dong tomorrow. When entering the airport, Yu Yi returned to Luocio and reported. Then she asked confusedly, Master, Yu Yi doesn't understand. The white jade plate has been found. Why do you want to send it back? Luocio said while reading the airport magazine, If I don't send it back, how will I deal with it later? I don't want them to apologize to me every few days because they can't find the jade plate. Anyway, the woman surnamed Dong has promised to send it back personally after finding it. He flipped through the magazine for another night. Then let's wait for her to send it back and end it once and for all. Besides, we've already known the secret of the jade plate, so it doesn't matter if we wait for 1 or 2 days. Yi nodded, but didn't say anything. Luocio suddenly smiled. Do you think I'm too scrupulous? As the boss of the club, how could I be restricted by the secular rules? Isn't it too degrading? Yi dare not. Luocio shook his head. There's nothing to be afraid of. You'll accompany me for a long time. If you don't dare to say anything, it'll be too boring. Yi had to say, Master, you really don't need to be restricted by the secular rules. Luocio said, I also think so, but not now. Yes, I'm the boss of the club now, but it's only been a week. But before that, I've been a normal person for 20 years. The education I received, the ideas I've formed, and the morals in society are still very strong. Obviously, this week isn't enough time to destroy my past. Luocio paused, so, at least before I completely get used to it, I won't stay in the club all day long, and I won't be like the previous boss who can listen to music boxes all day long. There's nothing in the world that can move him. Do you understand? The fact that I'm still living in this society? Yi nodded blankly. Luocio smiled. Maybe you can remember who you were before you became puppet. Then you'll understand. This time Yi shook her head with certainty. There's no need for that. Yi exists to serve the club and listen to the boss's orders. That's enough. Luocio didn't want to say too much. If he said too much, he would be bored. Chapter 28. Genius 1. Second, remember love, divided by little. Say net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. P.S. Thanks to XBC000000, Galankel for the tip. Love, go little say in the following text, Yin Xiling planned to have a heart-to-heart talk with Luocio. The 29-year-old deputy editor said that she had been busy with work recently and had been negligent. She didn't do her job as a mother. Her soft and gentle voice could almost kill most men. Then, the box of crisps instantly killed Run Xiling's following words. When she reacted, Luocio had already closed the door of the room. Listening to the old CD player that Lao Luo gave his son, playing Eagles Desperado, Ren Xiling silently gnawed on a box of crisps. Then there was no then. Brat, do you have to be so emotional? In fact, there was no one in Luocio's room. After he returned to the room, he turned on the CD player and directly went back to the club. Who knew what the hell was playing? Sitting behind the club counter, Luocio said that it was too late and didn't want to drink flower tea. The considerate maid opened the wine cabinet on the side of the bar in front of Luocio for the first time. A bottle of vodka, a bottle of black cocoa, and a bottle of fruit-flavored gin. Yi looked at Luocio with a faint smile on her face. Then she filled the shaker with ice cubes, poured the 3 kinds of drinks into small cups, and poured them into the shaker. She closed the lid and began to shake. There weren't too many tricks, but from beginning to end, Yu Ye's eyes never left Luochio. As the saying goes, beauty and fine wine are always suitable for each other. Luochio looked at them and felt relaxed and happy. Yu Yi shook the shaker until light, white frost formed on the outside of the shaker. After the mixture turned light brown, she poured it into a cocktail glass. Accompanied by the rhythmic sound of high heels hitting the wooden floor, the mixed drink was also sent to Luochio. Luochio joked, "I think I may have to invade the kitchen next time." Yu Yi looked at Luochio in confusion. Luochio smiled and said, "Because it's really a pleasure to see you cook or mix drinks." Yu Yi's faint smile turned into a smile. She walked slowly to the club lobby to have a nap. There was an old vinyl record player made of old pine wood placed here. Yu Yi put down the black record, pressed the needle, and slowly turned around. A soft and mysterious movement began to play. Yu Yi returned to Luochio's side and sat opposite him. The maid revealed a languid expression. Her legs were crossed under the hem of her skirt, and her elbows were placed on a round table. She cupped her face with her hands. Luochio took a sip of the mixed cocktail. He originally thought that it should be very strong mixed with vodka and gin wine, but he didn't expect it to be sweet and refreshing. Maybe it was because of the other black cocoa. He played with the white jade token he got from Pianxian and suddenly asked, "In this world, is there really a past life and a present life? Are there 10 Yama kings after reincarnation?" Yu Yi whispered, "There are many ancient legends in the East. People believe because they believe. But who knows? After all, it's not a way to let people see it with their own eyes." Luochio asked, "Then how do you explain Su Haod?" Yu Yi said, "People have thoughts, and thoughts are the soul. So if the soul doesn't dissipate, the thoughts won't dissipate. There are ghosts, and so on in this world. But in Yu Ye's view, these are all clusters of strong spiritual bodies. They left the carrier of the physical body, but they didn't dissipate because of their strong emotional obsession." Hearing this, Luochio said, "I've read some fantastic magazines. It said that the human spirit is like a kind of wave. When the spiritual wavelength of two parties is close or almost the same, maybe one party can accept the other party's thought wave. In other words, there is no such thing as a past life and a present life, but Su Haod found a carrier that can accept his thoughts?" Yu Yi smiled. "It's up to the master to believe it." Luochio shook his head and took another sip of the cocktail. He pursed his eyebrows and felt the fragrance of the wine lingering in his mouth. "It's strange. If there's reincarnation, where did the first human come from? There weren't many humans in the beginning. Now the population has exploded. If the dead can reincarnate, where did the first human come from? But maybe it did exist. The existence of the soul was not explained by the spirit, and there was also a kind of unknown management that could explain this phenomenon without reincarnation." Thinking of this, Luochio felt that he might fall into an unknown dead end if he continued to think about it. He didn't want to be a philosopher, so he shook his head self-mockingly and stopped thinking about it. Then, the bell placed at the door rang. Zhong Luochen came, travel-worn. On the way, Zhong Luochen checked the information of this street with a map on his mobile phone. He didn't find the existence of the club on the map, but another shop. Even a picture of the street was marked. However, the club miraculously replaced the shop. He once stood at the entrance of the club and found that one after another passers-by walked past him into the club he saw. However, they quickly walked out with only some supplies. Obviously, the club that he saw and the shop that the pedestrians saw were in the same location, but they were probably in different spaces. Zhong Luochen was in awe of this magic. He took a deep breath and pushed open the door of the club again. He saw the man with the clown mask and the beautiful woman dressed as a maid. Zhong Luochen was not in the mood to linger on such beauty, so he came straight to the point. "Mr. Clown, I've brought my grandfather here, and he's staying in a hotel nearby." Luochio waved his hand and stopped Zhong Luochen from talking. Then he waved the black cane in his hand, and something even more mysterious and unimaginable appeared in Zhong Luochen's eyes. The corridor was filled with soft lights and carpeted. Zhong Luochen was slightly frightened. "This is a hotel." Luochio walked in front with his hands behind his back. "Guest, take me to see your grandfather," But I have a request. I hope there are no more outsiders, except for you and your grandfather. Zhong Luochen immediately said, "My family was worried this time, so they insisted on coming. But don't worry, Mr. Clown. I've asked them to wait on the floor below. But there's not much time." Luochio said indifferently, "Got it." In a suite, Luochio finally saw Zhong Luochen's grandfather. He was lying on the bed, with a needle in his arm and an infusion bag hanging. There were a lot of instruments next to him. The old man looked haggard and pale, without a trace of blood. He lay there like this, not far from death. Luochio walked to the old man's side and suddenly thought, "Did I see too many old people today?" But this absent-mindedness didn't affect what he was supposed to do. Luochio stretched out his hand and pressed on the old man's face. Some black light spots started to emerge from the forehead of Zhong Luochen's grandfather and were absorbed into Luochio's palm. At this moment, the door of the suite was knocked, and a man's voice was heard. "Luochen, I heard some noise. Are you back? Open the door. Open the door. You don't want us to guard grandfather. What do you mean?" The knocking on the door was very loud, obviously with a lot of strength. "If you don't open the door, don't blame me for barging in. Is there someone else inside?" Zhong Luochen looked at the door anxiously. From the voice, he knew it was his elder brother, Zhong Luoyan. This guy was very suspicious. He must have used some method to spy on him. Otherwise, it would be too much of a coincidence for his elder brother to come here right after he came back. "Mr. Clown, I don't know." Zhong Luochen hurriedly turned around, but he couldn't see Luochio's figure. But the scene in front of him almost made his heart jump out of his chest. The old man lying on the bed had opened his eyes at some point and sat up. Although his face was still haggard, his eyes were still clear. "What is this, Luochen?" The old man slowly opened his mouth. At the same time, Zhong Luochen heard this sentence. "Customer, we have delivered the goods you requested. The transaction is complete." Zhong Luochen was dazed for a moment, and he found himself in a pitch-black world. A sheepskin scroll floated in front of his eyes and burned, then disappeared. He felt as if something had been taken out of him, and he subconsciously touched his body. His vision became clear at this moment, and he was back in the suite. Perhaps because he saw Zhong Luochen's strange appearance, the old man slowly opened his mouth again. "Luochen, what are you looking for?" Zhong Luochen suddenly shivered and stopped his hands. He looked up at the old man and suddenly fell to the ground. He didn't feel the slightest bit of joy that he should feel. It was as if he was looking at a complete stranger. "Luochen." The old man opened his mouth for the third time. Zhong Luochen swallowed his saliva and stood up. He didn't know what his expression was, but he knew that he tried his best to squeeze out an expression of ecstasy. Chapter 29. Genius 1 Second Remember Love, Go/Small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. PS1. Thank you for your only for the desire in my heart's tips and your silent votes. Today's weather is very good. Of course, I'm here laughing. Yin yin yin, the following text, yin yin yin, miracle. It's really a miracle? No, this is already a miracle. The Zhong family members were relieved to hear the attending doctor's excited speech as he examined old Master Zhong's condition. As for old Master Zhong, who knew his own situation and knew that he had come back from the gates of death, he couldn't help but burst into tears with his good brother, who had accompanied him for decades. "Doctor, are you sure my grandfather is fine? You'd better check carefully. If there's any mistake, I will never forgive you." The eldest brother, Zhong Luoyun, stared sharply at the attending doctor, who was so excited that he forgot himself. "Ah, eldest young master, you're right," the attending doctor hurriedly said. "Although all the instruments here show that old Master Zhong is in good condition, it's better to do a more detailed examination." Zhong Luoyun nodded and said, "I'll arrange it right away." The attending doctor had to be busy for a while. As for the other assistant, he looked curiously at the second young master of the Zhong family and said, "Second young master, what method did you use to reverse old Master Zhong's situation? This was a miracle in the medical field. If there's really a way to cure this terminal illness, it's really a revolutionary breakthrough in the history of human medicine." Unexpectedly, Zhong Luochen said indifferently, "Listen, the people who cured old Master Zhong are you. and it can only be you. No one here can reveal what happened today, no matter who it is. Everyone looked at the calm Zhong Luochen in surprise. His mother and eldest brother, Zhong Luoyun, frowned at the same time. Just as Zhong Luoyun was about to speak, old Master Zhong suddenly said, "You all can leave. Luochen, old Luo, you stay too. I have something to ask." "Grandfather?" "Father." However, old Master Zhong's face suddenly darkened. His boldness in managing this large clan for decades made everyone shut their mouths. There was no need to say anything more. Everyone could only leave the suite silently. After everyone left, leaving only Zhong Luochen and old Luo, old Master Zhong opened his mouth again and again. "I still have some self-awareness, and I'm not a person without common sense. It wasn't just a day or two ago that I discovered the problem in my head. I know very well how long an old man, like me, still has to live. Luochen, tell me honestly, what did you do?" "Grandfather, it's fine as long as you can recover," Zhong Luochen said softly. "The rest is not important." Old Luochen, Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Luochen, old Master Zhongfen sighed, old Luochen sighed. Old Luo sighed. He knew that he couldn't hide it anymore, so he could only smile bitterly and say, "Master, I'm sorry." Luochen, Luo, Luochen. Luochen, Luochen, old Luochen. Old Zhong's expression changed slightly. His recuperation of painting and calligraphy in his later years was suddenly broken. He waved his hand and slapped old Luo's face angrily. He said, "Fool, Luochen, old Luo, how could you be so foolish? Don't you know what that place is? It's not a holy mountain. It's a place like hell." Old Luo lowered his head, not daring to speak. Luochen didn't feel wronged. He had followed old Master Zhong for decades. The relationship between them had long surpassed the blood relationship of ordinary people. Old Luo sighed again. "Master, the Zhong family can't live without you. I asked second young master to go there. If you want to blame someone, blame me." Old Master Zhong smiled bitterly. "What's the use of blaming you now?" "But Luochen," he turned to Zhong Luochen, taking a deep breath. "Son, tell me honestly, what did you use in exchange for my life in that place?" Zhong Luochen opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Old Master Zhong shook his head. "That place is mysterious, but if no one knows, how could you find it? Your grandfather Luo told you, and I told him." Zhong Luochen had to tell him everything, including how he got the black card from Guyu Zhai and what happened in the club. Seeing Zhong Luochen saying all this without the slightest bit of emotion, the old Master Zhong could not help but say sorrowfully, "Using your lifetime of happiness in exchange for 5 years of my life, an old man who should have died. Silly child, do you think it's worth it?" Zhong Luochen said indifferently, "It's worth it. Grandpa, don't you know that once you fall, the Zhong family will fall apart immediately? Our Zhong family has meddled in too many things. My father, who should have been responsible for these things, became like this in his early years. In the third generation, whether it's my elder brother, my younger sister, or me, we haven't matured yet." He sighed. "Now is not the past, and the society is not the past. Can we, who have developed since that era, control everything secretly like we did 20 or 30 years ago?" He shook his head. "We can't. Even to the people now, we're more like a malignant tumor. Grandpa, if you're not here, how can we support the Zhong family with only my brother and sister and my father, who has become like this? Once you fall, everyone will be in danger, and the relatives will think about how to divide the family's wealth. As the saying goes, when the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. You're the only towering tree in the Zhong family now. I won't let you fall so easily." 5 years. 5 years. Old Master Zhong murmured to himself, looking at Zhong Luochen sadly. The old man cried, "My child, it's been hard on you. Everything will be fine." Zhong Luochen shook his head. Old Master Zhong was silent for a while. "I want to be alone for a while. All of you can leave now." On the 3rd floor of the club, the sacrifice was successful. You've gained 127 days, 9 hours, 43 minutes and 7 seconds of lifespan. Luaccio opened his mouth in astonishment. What the hell was the 9 hours and 7 seconds? You're purposely showing your existence on the altar, aren't you? Having said that, Luaccio was too lazy to complain after the sacrifice. He directly returned to the lobby of the club. The new boss of the club, who felt that he had a much longer lifespan, seemed to be in a good mood. He imitated Yi and walked to the bar counter to mix the same cocktail. Of course, he only did this because he felt that it was new. As for whether the finished product was a glowing dish or a dark one, what did it matter? Anyway, only he would drink it. Yi was just a puppet and couldn't eat it all. Thinking that he forgot to take out the ice cubes from the fridge, Luaccio was surprised to see the door of the fridge open directly. The ice cubes fell out and flew to him in an orderly manner, then fell into the cocktail pot one by one. Luaccio was stunned. Yi said with a smile, "Congratulations, master. Your ability has been strengthened again." Luaccio curiously stretched out his finger and pointed at one of the ice cubes in the cocktail pot. He found that the ice cubes directly floated. As his finger moved, the ice cubes also began to make an infinite circle in the air. The playful Luaccio put all 10 of his fingers on the bar counter at the same time. He looked at Yi and raised his eyebrows. His fingers began to lightly tap on the bar counter. One by one, the ice cubes flew out of the cocktail pot and arranged themselves in the air, forming a circle in the lobby of the club. Luaccio stretched out his finger and drew a wavy curve. The ice cubes in the circle rose up and down one after another. It was a never-ending wave. His finger pointed at the pine wood vinyl record player in the corner. A vinyl record flew out and fell into the record player. Accompanied by the sound of the record player, Luaccio stepped on the sign and gently nodded his head, walking out of the bar counter. It was Rod Stewart's Sailing. Luaccio grabbed Yuye's hand and transmitted his own rhythm to the servant doll. He pulled Yuye and began to gently swing in the club. The seats and stools began to automatically lean against the wall. The empty space turned into a dance floor. The nostalgic sound of the voyage sounded. Luaccio continued to stretch out his finger and pointed at the furnishings in the display cabinets one by one. Dolls, old pocket watches, hats, and wine glasses. There were also eyeballs emitting crimson light. More ice cubes flew out of the fridge. They once again combined into a transparent ice crystal spectrum, dancing in the air with the melody. Several dolls landed on the wooden floor at the same time, surrounding Luaccio and Yuye. When the needle turned halfway, Luaccio raised his eyebrows and smiled. Isn't it more interesting than doing nothing and just sitting there? Yuye took the initiative to pull Luaccio's other hand and guided this new owner of the dance steps that were too horrible to look at. Yuye joked him, "However, it will probably be a huge project to clean up later." Luaccio looked at the doll in amusement. There were times when she wasn't cold. She didn't speak and let her words turn into emotions in the music and melody. Then, the bell in the pinewood door suddenly rang. The ice cubes scattered on the ground like marbles. The dancing decorations stopped abruptly. It was as if the stage had been swept up by a gust of wind. Luaccio looked at the mess and let out an oh sound. He looked at the wooden door that was knocked open like a gust of wind and appeared in front of him. A floating black robe. Then, under the hood, was a cloud of black smoke without a face. Black Soul Envoy greets the new owner. Yin 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 PS2. Do you know why it starts with PS1? Because PS2 is here. If the weather is bad, why don't you listen to Rod Stewart's Sailing? Life will become much better. Chapter 30. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small. I will provide you with wonderful novels to read. The black robe was only concealing a mass of black mist, but it was able to emit sound. Floating in the air, the lower part of the robe swayed slightly. Its general image was very similar to the ghosts in Western legends. Black Soul Emissary, that was what it called itself. Luaccio looked up and down. The altar that imprisoned his soul was now very conscientiously revealing the information of this Black Soul Emissary to Luaccio. The club needed a steady stream of customers, otherwise the club's owner would die soon. So how to increase the number of customers? Just like the existence of the black card, Other than making customers willing to come to trade through discounts, there was also the existence of advertising. The Black Soul Emissary was like the existence of the club's advertising. They wandered in the society, constantly spreading the existence of the club in the dark. Legends and legends were actually created by people with intentions. These Black Soul Emissaries were actually evolved from souls, and these souls were all used as transaction fees and eventually belonged to the club. If they were useful or had good abilities, they could choose to store the souls in the warehouse, then turn them into Black Soul Emissaries, and finally work for the club outside for free. The new boss of the club felt that this kind of free labor was actually very good. He had nothing to be dissatisfied with. These loyal and would not betray him. They did not even need manual labor and silently pulled in customers outside. This was simply a touching form of praise, okay? Greetings, Miss Yu. Black Soul's voice was as respectful as when it was facing Luochio. It could be seen that Yu Ye's position in the club was indeed second only to the boss's privilege. Master, do you want to hear the report for number 9? Yu Ye asked Luochio. Luochio knew that Black Soul had no name, only numbers, so he did not feel strange. He looked at Yu Ye curiously and said, "You should, right?" Yu Ye explained, "The previous boss only let me be in charge. That must be because the previous boss had reached a new height of isolation, right?" Luochio smiled and said, "I'll listen. Number 9, begin the report." Yu Ye nodded and ordered. Black Soul number 9 said in a gloomy voice, "Master, number 9 has successfully implanted information about the existence of the club into 7 different investors." Black Soul number 9's black robe suddenly opened, and 7 white cards flew out from its black fog-like body and arrived in front of Luochio. Black Soul number 9 continued, "These are the information of the 7 new customers. Master, please take a look." As long as he put his finger on a white card, he would be able to know the information sealed in the card, instead of reading a long document or listening to a boring introduction. Luochio felt really good as he started to select one of the white cards without thinking. Yu Ye was afraid that Luochio didn't know the rules, so she said softly, "Master can choose the right one from the 7 new investors and give the black card discount." Of course, you don't have to make black cards. Black Soul has been doing this kind of business for many years, and more than 70% of the investors they choose will come to the club. The black card discount was just a means to attract transactions, but if they really needed it, they would come even if there was no discount. For example, Butterfly Demon Pinshian was one of them. Of course, the reason why Black Soul's potential customers were called potential customers was because these people were able to pay more than the customers who did not have the black card, did not know the legend, and just came in by themselves. They would have more opportunities. Black Soul called it business. The more investors it found and the more successful the transactions were, the higher the performance of Black Soul would be. High performance could also bring some benefits to Black Soul. For example, it could have a physical body, recover some memories, and be liberated from the labor of the club. While the last reward could actually be crossed out manually. Because in the history of the club, no Black Soul had successfully obtained the liberated reward. Luochio read the credits of the 7 white cards while asking Yu Ye, "How many Black Soul envoys do we have?" "Now, there are 21 left." Yu Ye quickly reported the number. Luochio was surprised. So few. Yu Ye explained, "Master, you already know that there are monks and demons in this world. So, there are some strange people who use the slogan of exorcism to subdue demons. The existence of Black Soul envoys is very similar to evil spirits. So there are always some troublesome exorcists or demon subduers in this world who will target and eliminate Black Soul envoys." Yu Ye explained in more detail, because in the eyes of these people, the club is an evil existence. It is indeed an evil existence Luochio ridiculed in his heart, but he listened silently. So, in the name of justice, they have been trying to eliminate the club for all these years. Yu Ye sneered. It's just that these guys are overestimating themselves. They don't know that the reason why the club hasn't done anything to them is that these guys themselves can provide a large amount of transaction fees. Looking at the other side of the puppet girl, Luochio continued to listen in silence. We won't choose to directly retaliate against these troublesome people. Instead, we will let more black soul envoys lure them. As long as they have something in their heart that is their weakness, the soul of a righteous and noble demon subduer is comparable to the souls of dozens or even hundreds or thousands of ordinary people. Luaccio, who didn't intend to express his opinion, frowned and said, "If so, then there should be a lot of black soul envoys. Why are there only 21 left?" Yi said, "On the one hand, it is to show weakness. If there are too many black soul envoys, it will make these self-proclaimed righteous people feel despair, and sooner or later they will be wiped out. If they are wiped out, there will be no way to cultivate more offspring, and one of the club's most important sources of transaction fees will disappear. On the other hand, the former boss didn't have the heart to work in recent decades. After the accumulated black soul envoys were wiped out one by one, he didn't replenish them." Luaccio nodded and put away the white car in front of him. He looked at black soul number 9 and said, "I'll read these materials slowly. You can continue with your work." Black soul number 9 didn't say anything and silently left the club. Luaccio looked at Yi and said, "I want to go to Boss Asthis' room to have a look." Boss Asthis was the former club owner who made a deal with Luaccio and sold the club to Luaccio. And the former boss's room was always locked. Of course, it could be opened. Chapter 31. Genius 1 Second Remember Love / Go / Little. Showa Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. The old door axle made a long squeaking sound when it was closed. Because the window had not been opened for a long time, the old smell in the room was released. Boss Oz's wasn't someone from this era, so it wasn't surprising that the furnishings in the room were ancient. Yi did not follow Luaccio in, but just stood at the door. Maybe it was out of respect for the former boss, or maybe it was out of awe. Of course, it could be something else. This room would probably be a rare treasure house in the eyes of a historian. But in fact, everything in the club could be called a treasure house. Luaccio walked to the window sill. The curtain was just a black gauze. There was also a small round table and a small square wooden chair. The chair was pulled out, and there were many scratches at the foot of the chair, probably because it was pulled out for a long time. Luaccio directly sat on the chair and closed his eyes. Boss Ozis would probably spend a lot of time sitting here every day. He did not know what was the use of this, but he felt that he should feel the feeling of sitting here. When he was sitting here, what was he focused on? After a while, Luaccio, who found nothing, stood up and began to walk around the room. Against the other side of the wall was a simple desk, but both the drawers and the table were empty. As for the wardrobe in the room, there was only one set of clothes. The bed was there, and so was the bedside table. There was a candlestick on the bedside table, and these were the only things in the room. Therefore, Luaccio didn't see the music box that Yi said could produce sounds after the winding of the clockwork. It was like the former boss did not leave anything for Luaccio except the first letter. Luaccio could not help but feel a little disappointed. When he was about to leave, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He walked to the round table again, squatted down, and looked at the floor of the round table. Using the same method, he looked at the bottom of the desk and flipped the bed over. He even looked at the back of the drawer. Finally, he moved the wardrobe. He looked at the cracks on the wall behind the wardrobe and the back of the wardrobe. There's really nothing left. Or am I overthinking it? Luaccio muttered to himself. In the end, he could only helplessly restore the room to its original appearance. Unknowingly, it was already time for the sun to rise. A gentle breeze blew away the veil covering the windows, and the sunlight shone on the glass window. Only then did Luaccio realize that this was a window pane. At this moment, the fragmented sunlight and the glazed flower windows combined to form a dazzling light painting. The room seemed to become much more vivid all of a sudden. Luaccio subconsciously walked to the window, opened the curtains, and pushed open the glass window. Outside was the commercial street that he was familiar with in the early morning. It was the commercial street he was familiar with. Luaccio closed the window pane. When he was about to pull up the black window screen, he saw the sunlight reflected on the wooden floor through the window pane. It was a neatly arranged pattern, but Luaccio was afraid that it was a kind of ancient text. but it seemed that they would disappear soon, probably because of the angle of the sunlight. Luaccio directly grabbed his mobile phone and captured the scene on the floor. At this time, the text had become blurred and soon melted into a fragmented light. Luaccio showed the captured image to Yu Yi. Yu Yi, do you recognize these words? Yu Yi just shook her head and showed a surprised look. Even if the maid had worked here for 300 years, she had never walked into Boss Isaac's room, so it was probably the first time she saw this kind of thing. But Yu Yi didn't recognize it, so the text was probably from 300 years ago or something even more ancient. Luaccio tried to put his palm on the phone screen, intending to use the identification ability, but he only got this response from the altar. The text content has been lost. Do you want to use 1,000 years of lifespan to repair and translate the content? Luaccio felt that there should be a what the fuck here. But at this time, another message came from the altar. 10 years of lifespan can be used to purchase the source. Well, there should be another what the fuck here. Master, looking at Luaccio's somewhat silent appearance, Yu Yi asked tentatively. Luaccio sighed, calmed his mood, and said, "It's okay. At least it's not empty-handed. There's still a long way to go. Moreover, with a goal, I'll probably become more active." He later told Yu Yi to continue working and return to his original home. At this time, Ren Xiling naturally hadn't woken up from her sleep. Luaccio felt that it was a waste to spend 10 years to buy the text. So he directly copied the captured image to the computer and then used the photo editing software to cut a few of the most clear text into separate images, and then piece them together into a new picture. He uploaded it to Jihu. Title content. What kind of text is in the picture? Next, he just needed to wait for the interpretation of enthusiasts. If no one recognized it, he could consider the overseas Quora website. If no one recognized it, then he would work hard to earn more lifespan. Speaking of working hard to earn lifespan, Luaccio had to start reading the information of the 7 customers brought by Black Soul 9 this time. In theory, the black card with the mark should be issued to customers who could still make a profit, even if the price was discounted. It wasn't as simple as using the transaction fee as a sacrifice to gain lifespan after the customer bought something. Through these transactions, Luaccio understood that he was also a customer of the club, but the biggest one, and his lifespan was the only currency he had. The purchase of information, the appraisal of items, or the release of Tianzi's soul from the White Jade token could all be done through his lifespan. Then there was the storage. After the storage, the items would lose the ability to be sacrificed. That was to say, in the future transactions, Luaccio would use his lifespan to replace the transaction fee if he liked it. Strictly speaking, this was also a kind of consumption behavior. Therefore, his lifespan wasn't something that didn't generate profits. The first white card appeared in Luaccio's palm, and then broke into pieces, turning into photons like a fog, winding around his head. Luaccio closed his eyes. Jiang Chu returned to the hospital early. In the hospital, it was rare for a doctor of Jiang Chu's level to arrive early. He was in his early 40s, but he was elegant and a famous chief surgeon of the neurosurgery department. Talent, fame, and wealth. He divorced his ex-wife 10 years ago and was still single. Therefore, many girls in the hospital admired Jiang Chu. Chapter 32. Genius remembers love in 1 second / little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Jiang Chu stared blankly at the black card that suddenly appeared, as if a whirlpool was dragging him into it. He stared strangely at the black card for more than 10 minutes, not moving at all, as if he had heard a voice that would often appear beside him for no reason during this period of time. "Dr. Jiang, the director wants to see you in his office." At this moment, the voice of the girl on duty sounded. Jiang Chu was stunned. He raised his head and found that his back was wet. He said absent-mindedly, "Oh, I know, I'll be right there." Jiang Chu hurriedly closed the file, but after a moment of hesitation, he finally put the black card into the pocket of his white coat. A few minutes later, Jiang Chu arrived at the director's office. The director, who had just celebrated his 63rd birthday last month, looked much healthier than the average middle-aged man in his 50s. The director saw Jiang Chu, whom he valued, and immediately smiled. "Jiang Chu, I knew you would be willing to wait for me at this hour." "Director, is there anything I can help you with?" Jiang Chu sat down. The director said, "Here's the thing. I need your help with this matter." Jiang Chu said seriously, "Director, just tell me, what's the matter?" The director sighed. "I have an old classmate. His granddaughter was found to have an incipient tumor in her brain. He found me. Well, I've checked the patient's condition in detail these days. Then I recommended you to him." Seeing that Jiang Chu was still calm, the director was satisfied, but his expression became more serious. "She's less than 5 years old, and the nerves in her brain are still very fragile. To be honest, there are so many doctors in the hospital, and I don't trust anyone else except you." Jiang Chu suddenly said, "Director, I've asked for a leave of absence last week," the director said gently. "I know you haven't had a good rest these years. I've already approved your leave of absence, but this old classmate of mine has been my friend for decades. You can postpone your leave of absence temporarily. After the operation is completed, I can even give you a month's leave." Jiang Chu said, "But director, it's not easy to operate on a child. If there's any chance, shouldn't we let the experienced Dr. Huang do it?" The dean was slightly displeased. "This time, you'll need to operate on the frontal lobes of the brain. Trust me, there's no one around who's more talented than you in this field." "Jiang Chu, you don't have to be so modest. I'm not the kind of person who ranks based on seniority. Compared to qualifications, I value personal medical ethics and skills more. Do your best in this operation. If you can complete it beautifully, I'm going to promote you to be my assistant." Jiang Chu looked at the dean in surprise. The dean said earnestly, "I've been working hard for so many years. It's time for me to rest. Jiang Chu, I value your character and your ability. Trust me, after a few more years of training, this hospital will definitely need you to take charge of it." The dean walked to Jiang Chu's side and patted his shoulder. "You have the ability, so don't belittle yourself. What's more, my old classmate has agreed to let you perform the operation. If you back out now, it'll be troublesome." Jiang Chu frowned and asked after hearing some other words. He had to play the friendship card. "Professor, just tell me frankly, who's that person?" "He's an old man in the health bureau. Although he retired, his words still carry a lot of weight." The dean smiled. "Have some confidence in yourself and don't feel too pressured. Although this operation is difficult, it's not a problem for you. Don't let me down." Jiang Chu had to say, "I want to see the patient's information first." "No problem. I'll send it to you in a moment." After saying that, the dean started to patrol. As for Jiang Chu, after returning to his office, he stared blankly at the table with a long face. He suddenly looked at his hands. After a while, he suddenly took out a small knife from the pen holder and held it like a scalpel. But as soon as he held it, his wrist began to tremble slightly. Jiang Chu waved his hand abruptly and threw the small knife on the ground. Then he covered his face in pain. Both of his hands were trembling. After a preliminary self-diagnosis, Jiang Chu had no choice but to realize what had happened to him. He was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Parkinson's disease. Not only would his hands tremble at any time, but if it happened during the operation, then originally he had asked for a long leave in order to discuss with a doctor friend abroad if there was any way to solve his problem. But as his teacher, the dean obviously had high hopes for this operation. He also knew the significance of this operation to his future career. However, it's so ironic. The chief surgeon lost his hands. Jiang Chu couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile. These 2 days, nothing happened in the club. But Luoqiu still received a message from Zhang Qingrui, saying that the auction house had found the lost item and sent it to him personally. She didn't know where Luoqiu lived, so she had to contact him by phone. Luoqiu didn't want to expose his residence. Although it was not difficult to investigate it in this information age, he finally chose to meet her at Guyuzhai. He had thought that the fat manager would send the jade token, but unexpectedly, it was the owner of the auction house who sent it in person. It was a lady named Dong Minghua. That lady didn't come? Seeing only Luoqiu, Zhang Qingrui asked curiously. Luoqiu said, "She's busy." Dong Minghua smiled. "Finally, it's just a false alarm. You may not believe it, but this jade token was sent back anonymously the next day. No one knows what happened in it." She said this to Luoqiu because Zhang Qingrui didn't show any surprised expression. Apparently, she had known it earlier. But Luochio, who knew it earlier, had to pretend to be surprised. That's really weird. Dong Minghua didn't know why she lowered her attitude. Mr. Luo, I'm really sorry for the false alarm. If it's possible, I'd like to invite you and that lady to have a meal. Luochio didn't want to deal with aliens, so he said directly, don't mention it. Ms. Dong, since the jade token has been returned to me, I won't pursue it any further. Dong Minghua put on a fake smile. In that case, I'll treat you to a meal even more. Luochio had to say, I'm also busy today. It was the first time for Dong Minghua to meet someone who didn't give her face like this. She wondered whether this guy was a hothead or really that busy. But she had spoken twice. If she continued, she would lose face. So she had to nod. That's a pity. But if Mr. Luo comes to my auction house next time, remember to inform me, so I can send someone to greet you. Luochio also nodded. That's fine. Zhang Qingrui was dumbfounded. She knew that Luochio was an eccentric person, but he was so unreasonable that he would suffer a lot in the future. But on the other hand, she admired Luochio's character. He didn't curry favor with the rich and powerful, and was actually a free person. Now, the society was impetuous, and it was rare for a young man to have such a character. Well, Ms. Zhang, I still have something to do at the auction house, so I have to go back soon. Dong Minghua said, it's really a pity that I didn't see Mrs. Zhang today. If there's a chance next time, I'll definitely visit. Zhang Qingrui also said a few words of courtesy, and then saw Dong Minghua out. Now she turned back and saw Luochio still standing there, and couldn't help but be surprised. In her opinion, Luochio should have left just now without saying anything. Well, there's something I want to trouble you with, Luochio said directly. Even the person who asks for help is like this. Zhang Qingrui smiled helplessly. Do you know that you just offended a very influential person in the antique circle? Now you're speaking in such a matter-of-fact tone. Aren't you afraid that you'll offend me too? Luochio was stunned and thought for a while. I've been lending you my notes, Zhang Qingrui. Zhang Qingrui sighed. Tell me, what's the matter? But just after she finished speaking, Zhang Qingrui frowned and said angrily, how can you use this kind of thing to force me to repay you? Stingy. But I've lent you my notes many times. Yin 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 yin. Chapter 33. Genius 1. Second, remember love, divided by little. I will provide you with wonderful novels to read. A box. Yes. Third, Mississippi. Love, go a little say, chew that day. Miss Zhang from Guyuzhai deliver a box in person. The third miss squinted at Cheng Yun. This ambitious man was easy to bribe. He was not only greedy for money, but also lustful. However, he was smart and observant. He knew what kind of woman he could play with, and what kind of woman he couldn't have any delusions about. For example, right now, Cheng Yun was restraining his aggressive gaze. The Zhong family's third miss smiled and said, do you know what's inside the box? Cheng Yun immediately said, of course I know. I even secretly took a picture of it when the second young master wasn't paying attention. Cheng Yun took 2 steps forward, but didn't dare to get too close. Although the third miss was charming, she wasn't a woman he could touch casually. All he needed to do was to gain enough benefits from the Zhong family's third Mississippi. What's this? The third miss frowned at the picture on her phone. Cheng Yun said, I'm not sure, but it should be a strange black card. The second young master never left this card. It was very difficult for me to secretly take a picture of it. The picture was taken from the back of the person's shoulder. That day, after the second young master got this card from Miss Zhang, he went out alone. Not long after, he asked me to arrange for him to return to the capital. I didn't expect that he would bring the old master here. What's more, the old master miraculously recovered. The third miss pondered for a moment and suddenly said, Cheng Yun, can you help me get this card? Cheng Yun's face slightly changed. This third miss, the second young master never left. What? The third miss chuckled. When you get benefits from me, no matter how much it is, you only nod. You only shake your head when I ask you to do something for me? I didn't mean that. Cheng Yun frowned, but the old master's condition is getting better these 2 days. The doctor also said that he's fine except for his weak body. I heard from the second young master that the old master might go to Guyuzhai tomorrow. I'm guessing that this card might be returned, because when Miss Zhang called the items over, she said that you have to return them after using them. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. The Zhang family's third miss said indifferently. Isn't that good? Since there would be a handover, wouldn't the opportunity to make a move come? Do it well. If you're loyal to me, there will be many benefits for you. But if she's useless, I don't think second brother would want someone who would betray him. Right? I know. Cheng Yun hurriedly nodded and left in fear. The third daughter of the Zhang family walked to the floor-to-ceiling window of the 9 o'clock suite. She lifted the curtain and looked at the busy street. That guy from Guyuzhai? He's a taboo in the capital. Second brother has been here for more than a month. What does that black card mean? She seemed to be looking forward to it and subconsciously played with the old ring-shaped pendant around her neck. You want to learn how to appraise antiques? Zhang Qingrui looked at Luochio with surprise. She remembered that last time when Rin Xiling brought her here, Luochio suddenly became interested in antiques, so he wanted to learn about them. Let's not talk about the matter of Yu Yi bidding for the white jade. Now that he made such a request, did he really have a strong interest in antiques? Yes. Luochio nodded and said straightforwardly, I know antique appraisal is a profound knowledge, so I don't want to reach the sky in one step. So I want you to introduce some basic knowledge to me. As if afraid that Zhang Qingrui would misunderstand, Luochio continued, Of course, you can introduce some basic books and information to me. I don't want to disturb you. Zhang Qingrui thought for a while and said, That's fine. But Luochio, as you said, antique appraisal is not something that can be mastered in a day or two. If you just want to do it for fun, I suggest you give up the idea. Luochio said seriously, I won't regret what I decide to do, and I won't give up halfway. Don't worry. Zhang Qingrui nodded. She quickly walked to the pear blossom wood book in her office. Not long after, she pulled out 3 thick books. They were Identification of Blue and White Porcelain, Origin of Blue and White Porcelain, and Appreciation of Qianlong-colored powder. There are many kinds of antiques, and there are many kinds of antiques. So if you really want to learn, I suggest you focus on one of them first. Zhang Qingrui said, Porcelain is relatively common, and it's one of the easiest things to get. I suggest you start with porcelain first. Luochio nodded and put the 3 books in his backpack. Luochio didn't bring a backpack last time, but now, in Zhang Qingrui's opinion, it was obviously a backpack specially for books. This guy, don't tell me that this was his plan from the start. I'll give them back to you as soon as I finish reading them. Luochio thanked her. Zhang Qingrui shook her head. No, these books aren't precious. If you know how to buy them, you can buy them in many places. So it's okay to give them to you. She suddenly stared at Luochio. Take it as a thank you gift for someone who often borrows my class notes. Luochio thought this girl also had a petty and vengeful side, so he had to say, Okay, I'll write it off. Zhang Qingrui didn't know whether to be angry or amused. She sneered and shook her head. I've given you the books. Do you have anything else to do? I have to deal with the shop, so I don't have much time to talk nonsense with you. But if you're interested, you can stay here and have a look. But remember, don't move your hands. Luochio shook his head. No, thanks. But since you welcome me here, I'll come here often. Zhang Qingrui didn't deny it. I'll walk you out. Before Zhang Qingrui walked Luochio to the lobby, she had to stop. The reason was that Cheng Yun in a suit also came to the door. His voice was heard before he arrived. Miss Zhang, that's great. I can see you here. Cheng Yun walked to Zhang Qingrui with a warm smile. Zhang Qingrui said indifferently, Why? Are you the only one here? Cheng Yun glanced at Luochio quickly and asked, Miss Zhang, may I ask who this is? He's my friend. Zhang Qingrui said, But I don't think he's interested in knowing you. What's the matter? Zhong Luochen asked you to come here? Cheng Yun nodded. Miss Zhang, may I have a word with you? Zhang Qingrui frowned and looked at Luochio apologetically. Luochio smiled. It doesn't matter. You go ahead. By the way, thank you for your gifts. I'll be careful and won't break them. When he took the 3 books, he found there were many notes in them. Obviously, Zhang Qingrui didn't just read them casually. Luochio didn't intend to take them back since she said she gave them to him. He planned to return them when he finished reading them. That's enough. You said more than a year ago. Zhang Qingrui rolled her eyes at Luochio and then turned to Qingyun. Come to my office. Qingyun didn't dare to delay and followed Zhang Qingrui. But when he looked back, he found Luochio really left. He frowned. What's the relationship between this guy and Zhang Qingrui? They look very close. In the office, Zhang Qingrui directly asked Cheng Yun's intention. Cheng Yun considered. Miss Zhang, here's the thing. Second young master asked me to come over this time, mainly to pass a message to old Madame Zhang. He looked at Zhang Qingrui's face, continuing, Of course, I don't dare to disturb Mrs. Zhang, so I want to pass a message to her. What's the matter? Second young master said he'll visit Mrs. Zhang in person tomorrow, and an old friend of hers will come with him. Zhang Qingrui gave a start. The only people who could be considered as her grandmother's old friends seemed to be people from the capital. She nodded. I see, I'll tell her. Is there anything else? No. Qingyun hurriedly said, I'm just passing a message. Nothing else? Miss Zhang, I won't disturb you. Zhang Qingrui nodded. In fact, it would be more convenient to pass a message by phone. However, these large families all had this kind of rotten temperament. They had to specially send people over to show respect. Zhang Qingrui didn't like this method, but she knew her grandma would care about these details. Is that guy a bit different? A strange thought popped up in her messy mind. Zhang Qingrui gave a start, then chuckled. Why should I care about that guy? Even if she felt strange, this guy was weird. So, he was like Luochio. She shook her head, taking a deep breath, then grabbed a pen and started to work attentively. Chengyin didn't leave immediately, but stopped at a parking lot behind Guyu Zhai. Not long after, a receptionist of Guyu Zhai looked around nervously. After making sure she wasn't seen by anyone, she walked quickly to the bushes. Little darling, did you miss me? Chengyin took her into his arms and caressed her from head to toe. Bastard, didn't you go back to the capital? I thought you've eaten your fill and turned your back on me. But I'm back now. Oh, tell me, what do you want me to do this time? But to be honest, eldest miss really doesn't have any feelings for your young master. Every time you send flowers, you'll be sent away. No, let's not talk about this. Look at this black heart in this photo. Do you have any impression of it? The receptionist looked at the photo carefully, saying after a while, Strange, I think I've seen it before, but I can't remember. It doesn't matter if you want to get up or not. Cheng Yin smiled. There's something I really need your help with. Listen, if it works, I'll give you whatever you want. Really? The receptionist's eyes turned hot, but she hesitated. Wait, tell me what it is first. I won't do dangerous things. Cheng Yin smiled. Baby, listen to me. You don't want to work all your life, right? Do you want to start a new life? And I promise you'll be fine. Then, okay. Cheng Yun began to whisper something in her ear. After a while, Cheng Yun sneered as he watched the receptionist leave. He muttered, What kind of woman is she? I'll be bored after playing with her a few more times. Stupid woman. As he spoke, he took out his phone and dialed Zhong Luochen's number. Immediately, his expression changed. It's me, second young master. Yes, the matter has been settled. I've passed the message to Miss Zhang. Nothing happened, but, after a pause, Cheng Yun said carefully, Do you remember the last time we came here? Miss Zhang was receiving a man and a woman? I saw it again today, but it was only that young man. They seem to have been in the office for a while. I just happened to see Miss Zhang and that young man walking out, talking and laughing. They seem to be quite close. Yin 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 yin. Chapter 34. A genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Luochio was reading one of the books, The Origin of the Blue and White Flower, when the bell rang. After putting on the clown mask, Luochio came down from the second floor of the club. The guest was Yang Taizi. Of course, it was only Yang Taizi. Who are you? Yang Taizi was surprised to see Luochio wearing a clown mask, but he also saw Yu Yi. From the figure, Yang Taizi easily guessed that this masked man was the young man from that day. Luochio pointed at the round table, indicating that Yang Taizi could sit down and have a good talk. Is he wearing a mask to hide his identity? But I've seen Luochio's real face. Yang Taizi couldn't help pondering over the meaning of his deceitful behavior. Is he warning me not to reveal my identity? Yang Taizi had always been very cautious, especially when dealing with such a mysterious and weird force. Therefore, Yang Taizi pretended that he didn't know Luocchio's real face, sitting down quietly. The old Taoist was good at meditation. When it was time to be quiet, he would be as still as a rock. However, Luocchio was thinking, if I knew it was Yang Taizi, I wouldn't have worn the mask. But Luocchio still took the initiative to ask, "Guest, you want this pair of jade plates, right?" In fact, if the white jade plates were really important to Yang Taizi, he should have arrived within 1 or 2 days. Yes. Yang Taizi nodded cautiously. Do you know the rules here? Luocchio suddenly asked. Yang Taizi said, I've heard about it. He was silent for a while, and then said resolutely, the value of the white jade token is too high. If it's a pair of complete white jade tokens, I'm afraid I can't afford it. So, I only want the high jade Emperor Heart Seal Sutra hidden in the white jade token. Luocchio asked curiously, Taiyenzi's 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls are still here. He's your sect's ancestor after all. Are you planning to leave him behind? He's been expelled from the sect. Yang Taizi said seriously. He's no longer a disciple of my sect. It has nothing to do with me. While speaking, Yang Taizi reached into his chest and took out a brocade bag. A trace of unwillingness flashed in his eyes, but he still opened it resolutely and poured out a cyan jade. This piece of cyan warm jade can be used to nourish qi. Ordinary people wearing it can not only prolong their lifespan, but also exorcise dretches. It was good to be a Taoist. Regardless of whether they were rich or poor, they could always find 1 or 2 treasures. They weren't like ordinary people in the mortal world, who could only rely on their lifespan, souls, and so on. Using treasures as transaction fees was basically a method not commonly used by humans. Luocchio stretched out his hand and swept over the jade. After a while, he said, this jade can only be exchanged for the scripture of one of the white jade plates. Yang Taizi gave a start and hurriedly said, Look carefully. This cyan jade has been nourished for thousands of years. Now the society is seriously polluted, and the aura of heaven and earth has long been weakened. As long as you wear it regularly, you can safely complete this step of nourishing qi. Luocchio shook his head. The scripture is a relic of your sect, isn't it? I listened to you reciting it that day, but I didn't know what you were talking about. I think this scripture should be missing in your sect. Love, go little say, net quintaddition, from the fact that you only want this scripture. I guess I'm not wrong. Luocchio said indifferently, since you don't know the complete version of the scripture, the complete version means more to you. Your cultivation may be stuck somewhere because of the incomplete scripture. It's easy to understand. Isn't it significant to you? Yang Taizi said helplessly, This is indeed a place that eats people without spitting out the bones. Half a chapter it is. As for the other half, I'll buy it back as soon as possible. Luocchio put 2 jade plates on the round table. Then you pick one. Yang Taizi was silent for a while and chose the left one. Obviously, both jade plates were in front of him. He could just pick them up and leave here directly. But Yang Taizi didn't dare to act rashly. Didn't he see that terrifying and powerful woman standing there that day? Although it was quiet, Yang Taizi didn't have the confidence to leave safely after grabbing the treasures. Yang Taizi took a deep breath, stretching out his finger and pointing at the jade plate on the left, murmuring something that no one knew what he was saying. Then the jade plate started to emit a faint light. Ancient golden characters were emerging from the white jade plate and surging into his eyes. Not long after, Yang Taizi reluctantly withdrew his finger when he saw no more words appeared on the white jade tablet. He smiled. Fortunately, I only chose the first half. For this kind of transaction on the spot, there was no need for a separate contract like Zhong Luochun. After the successful transaction, Luocchio felt better, so he made another black card and gave it to Yang Taizi. Of course, the black card didn't have a mark on it. Yang Taizi read the first half of the scripture and felt better. He asked, Excuse me, what are you going to do with the 3 souls and 7 spirits of Taiyenzi in the jade plate? Luochio said indifferently. Do you want to buy it? No. Yang Taizi hurriedly said, I have something else to do. I'll come back when I find the treasure. Sitting there, he felt uneasy and extremely uncomfortable. His steady Taoist heart kept swaying, and he didn't want to stay any longer. Seeing Yang Taizi leaving in a hurry, Luochio took off his mask and looked at Yu Yi, asking, Did the monks who came to the club look like this? Yu Yi said, After all, the legends in their circle have been demonized. Really? Luochio nodded, and suddenly put the two jade plates together. Green smoke came out and took shape. It was Taiyinzi who was trapped in the jade plate. Taiyinzi's appearance this time wasn't as reckless as before. There was even a look of horror on his face. Luochio said slowly, From the beginning of the transaction, I let you see the whole process. Now, do you know what I do? Yes. Taiyinzi nodded. This guy came from 500 years ago and also knew the existence of the club. It seemed that the club's history could last for another 500 years. Thinking of this, Luochio asked at the same time, Do you want to get out of the jade plate? Taiyinzi was trapped for 500 years, and this was his only wish. What else can I give back? Taiyinzi gave a bitter smile. We don't accept money here. Even if it's money, I'm penniless now. I only have my 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. You want my 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls? I need some servants recently. Luochio deliberated. How about 500 years? You're trapped for 500 years, and then you serve me for 500 years, and then I'll set you free. 500 years for 500 years, but in fact, you can leave the jade plate, so you can still make a profit. Taiyinzi said without thinking. Okay, I'll do it. Luochio was quite satisfied with this result. Then he used the ability given to him by the club to release Taiyinzi from the jade plate and reunited his 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. Finally, he was branded as a member of the club. Black Soul Envoy. Taiyinzi knew his identity after he regained his freedom. He couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. Finally, he said with a bitter smile, Black Soul Tinzi greets the master. Luochio smiled. You stay here for a few days, I'll call a Black Soul Envoy back. Yu Yi, call a big boss with good performance back to teach this newbie. Chapter 35. Genius remembers love in 1 second/little. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. The director acted so fast that Jiang Chu didn't know what to do. The patient had been sent to the ward of the hospital. She was an adorable little girl. Looking at the little girl lying on the sickbed with a pale face due to the torment of her illness, Jiang Chu felt an inexplicable sense of irritation. Don't look at me like this. Please don't look at me like this. He kept thinking in his heart, almost begging. But on the surface, he could only stay calm and discuss the patient's condition with the director. The little girl's grandfather, the retired cadre of the Municipal Health Bureau, was also there. What retired old cadre? This was clearly the former bureau chief, and the current successor was also a direct disciple that he had brought up. Dr. Jiang, if there's no problem, I hope you can start the operation as soon as possible. I don't want my granddaughter to be tortured like this every day. Looking at the pleading in the old man's eyes, Jiang Chu guessed that he was just a helpless grandfather of the patient. Perhaps the operation would be fine? The operation could be completed within 5 to 6 hours. If it was controlled by medication, it should be able to support the trembling hands. Uncle Doctor, will you make Ting Ting better? Don't look at me like this. Please don't. Jiang Chu gritted his teeth. Director, there's a lot of work and conditioning before the operation. I understand the patient's feelings, but please understand that it's a brain operation and we can't afford to be careless. Demon nodded and said, I understand. But don't worry, I'll arrange what you need first. You don't need to worry about the conditioning. Ting Ting needs the operation for a long time, so we've been conditioning her body since a few months ago. We're ready for the operation at any time. Jiang Chu had to say, I understand. Ting Ting's grandfather grasped Jiang Chu's hands tightly. Dr. Jiang, I'm counting on you. Jiang Chu took a deep breath. I'll try my best. Not long after, Jiang Chu went back to his office, lying on the sofa and closing his eyes. However, the The moment he closed his eyes, he seemed to see the little girl's eyes. This made him inexplicably agitated. Jiang Chu subconsciously took out the black card from his pocket and stared at it blankly. It was as if a voice rang out in his head, saying, "Come, come, your wish will come true. Come." Suddenly his phone rang. Jiang Chu shuddered. His hand trembled and the black card fell to the ground. Jiang Chu frowned and finally answered the call. It was a call from his ex-wife. They had divorced a long time ago, and their son was given to Jiang Chu. But Jiang Chu didn't disregard their old relationship. Every once in a while, he would let his son stay at his ex-wife's place for a few days. In addition, he was busy with work in the hospital, so this could relieve the pressure of his work. "What's wrong? Why are you calling at this time?" "Jiang Chu, my son suddenly fainted. I called the ambulance, and they are on their way to your hospital. What should I do? My heart is breaking when I see him in so much pain." Hearing his ex-wife's sobbing voice, Jiang Chu's expression changed. He rushed out of the office without thinking. Although he was a novice, he was different from the ordinary Black Soul envoys. When Luoqiu turned Tianzi into a Black Soul envoy, he kept his memory. Of course, it would take some time for him to keep his memory. But Luoqiu was willing to invest since he had already earned a lot from Zhong Luoqin. Tianzi was a figure from 500 years ago. He should know more about the Eastern Taoist Circle than Yu Yi. Although he didn't know about the 500 years in between, the things from 500 years ago could be considered as intangible assets. But it takes 15 days. So expensive. After complaining about the high price he had to pay for the altar, Luoqiu continued to read The Origin of the Blue and White Flower quietly. Not long after, Tianzi walked to Luoqiu respectfully and presented him with several pieces of A4 paper full of writing. "Master, this is the scripture I wrote down from memory." Luoqiu put down the antique book and started to read it. Well, he couldn't understand it at all. Tianzi was an old monster with hundreds of years of experience. He said fawningly, "Master, if you want to cultivate this wonderful scripture, I can give you some guidance. Although the spiritual energy in modern times is scarce, Master just got the green warm jade from Yang Taizi, so it won't be difficult for you to cultivate the first step." But Luoqiu shook his head. "No, I'm just curious. You can learn how to make white cards from Yu Yi." Tianzi could only leave in disappointment. Luoqiu glanced at the incomprehensible Eastern Taoist scripture and put it aside casually. As a modern youth who didn't seek death, he was more or less influenced by the utilitarianism of modern society. As the number of transactions increased, he would become more and more powerful. All kinds of abilities would be improved, and he could even achieve immortality. Why should he put the cart before the horse and cultivate this scripture? Luoqiu continued to read The Origin of Blue and White Flower until the shops outside were closed. He stretched himself and said, "Jiang Chu won't come today, right? Let's go home." Before leaving, Luoqiu stored the green warm jade in the warehouse and used up 30 days of his life. Then he went home directly. Rin Xiling hadn't come back yet. It seemed that she had to do the final typesetting before printing, so she had to work overtime until late at night. Luoqiu pushed open Rin Xiling's door and walked to her bed. After raising the mattress, he put the green warm jade under the mattress. "Just take it as a birthday present half a year later," Luoqiu muttered. "But isn't this woman a bit?" Looking at the messy clothes in the room, Luoqiu shook his head. He wondered if he should tidy up a bit, but decided against it. But the thought of tidying up the room appeared in his mind. All the clothes in the room floated in the air. Luoqiu was stunned and shuddered. The clothes floating in the air fell down one after another, and the red lace underwear that was originally in a moving state fell on his feet cooperatively. Luoqiu subconsciously wanted to kick it away. Unexpectedly, Rin Xiling's voice suddenly sounded. She sounded surprised and threatened. "Luoqiu, what were you doing here?" "Well, let's first review the scene." Because of the thought of tidying up the clothes, all the clothes were in motion. Their current position was actually much dirtier than before. Then, Luoqiu felt that it was a malicious intent from the universe. Some of the more subtle clothes fell around him. This scene appeared in front of Run Xiling's eyes unreservedly. F*CK. This is so F*King embarrassing. Yin PS1. I found that there are more recommendation votes than clicks. This is so embarrassing. Why does it look like Taba's porn package? Chapter 36. Genius 1 second remember love. Go/little. Say network, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Luaccio knew. In life, it was inevitable to encounter many embarrassing things. Even close relatives, there would be times when it was particularly awkward. He was good at observation, so it was easy for him to see what Rin Xiling was thinking from her expression. Because of the excess of male hormones during puberty and the sexual deviation caused by exposure to a large amount of dirty information in society, and also because of the lack of maternal love since childhood, which led to the psychological bias of longing for older women, and so on. But with Luaccio's understanding of Rin Xiling, so many thoughts would only lead to one conclusion in the end. It's my fault. I actually didn't notice this. Rin Xiling took a deep breath and said, "Let me be alone and think about it." Rin Xiling suddenly closed the door of the room. The two of them were separated by a door like this, and time passed little by little. The door opened again, only to see Rin Xiling with a serious face, looking at Luaccio, and said, "Luaccio, I think we need to have a good talk. Listen, for men, this is not a shameful thing. We need to look at this problem optimistically." I knew it would be like this. Luaccio had the urge to cover his face. Thousands of words finally converged into 2 words, and gently spit it out from his mouth. Sleep. What? Rin Xiling only felt a strong wave of tiredness, making her eyelids so heavy that she couldn't open them. But in the blink of an eye, she had already leaned against the door, slowly slid to the ground, and fell asleep. Luaccio stretched out his hand, and Rin Xiling's body floated from the ground, and then floated back to the bed. He looked at Rin Xiling, who had directly entered a state of deep sleep, with some annoyance. Shaking his head, the space around Luaccio suddenly distorted slightly, and the next second, a doll with a beautiful face had already walked out of the distortion. "Master, why did you summon Yu? Is there a problem?" Luaccio said, "Yu, you should be able to hypnotize her and make her forget some small fragments of her memories, right?" Yu looked around the room and nodded. "Yes, it's fine. However, if humans suddenly have a blank memory, they will have doubts. It is best to use something to fill in the blank." Luaccio thought for a while. "How about this? When I got home, I didn't see Luaccio, but because I was too tired, I didn't even take a shower and fell asleep on my bed." "Understood." Yu walked to Rin Xiling's side, stretched out her hand and pressed on Rin Xiling's forehead, then lowered her head and whispered something in her ear. Not long after, Yu stood up. "Master, when she wakes up tomorrow, she will only remember what you just said." Luaccio secretly breathed a sigh of relief. "Well, thank you for your hard work. You can go back first." After hearing the order, Yu did not stay any longer. She walked in from where she left and disappeared. Luaccio took a last look at Rin Xiling, then casually sent the blanket flying and covered her body. Only then did he gently close the door and go back to his room. Love go, shall say W. Luaccio was not too sleepy. He turned on the computer and logged into his Jihu account. He found that there were already 2 replies to the questions he posted. The first one, are there only these few words? Is there a full picture or something like that? Because there are similar characters in the ancient text, it is difficult to determine what kind of text it is without more references. The second one, it might be the Coptic language. It is considered a later product of the development of the ancient Egyptian language. However, I am not too sure. It is better to have more references. Luaccio thought for a while and cut out a few more words from the original photo. However, this time, he cut out a paragraph that was similar to a sentence. It was also the most complete and clear sentence that could be found in the photo. After he posted it, Luaccio waited for a while. There was no reply, so he turned off the computer and lay on the bed with his phone. Thinking that it might be the Coptic language answer, he began to search on his phone. 3rd century AD. A large number of Greek documents copied in the Coptic language appeared, especially Christian scriptures. What the hell? Luochio suddenly felt sleepy. He looked and did not think too much. Then he fell asleep. When he woke up the next day, he heard movement in the kitchen. He found Run Xiling making breakfast in the kitchen, full of energy. There was toast, fried eggs, and slices of ham. There was also a tomato salad to go with the nutrition balance. He probably hadn't eaten Rin Xiling's breakfast for a long time, right? Luochio, you're awake. Rin Xiling walked out of the kitchen wearing an apron, holding 2 glasses of milk in her hands. I don't know why, but I'm particularly energetic today. I woke up early on a whim. Try my cooking more often. What kind of cooking skills do you need to make toast and fried eggs? Rin Xiling rolled her eyes and reached out to knock on Luochio's forehead. Don't talk nonsense. Do you want to eat or not? Luochio shrugged and began to smear butter on the toast. Rin Xiling also chewed on the bread. At the same time, she looked at Luochio and asked, I say, boy, have you done anything bad recently? Why do I feel like you're coming back late? Don't you usually come back early, as if you deserve to be single for the rest of your life? Luochio had long been accustomed to this woman's bad words. He did not feel much and had already thought of an excuse. I've been working recently. If there's nothing, I should come back late at night. But didn't you say that you were going on a trip the last 2 times? Rin Xiling was obviously not a person who could be easily fooled. Luochio fooled her. Working. Rin Xiling's phone rang at this time. She had to stop talking. After picking up the phone, her expression changed slightly, and she hurriedly packed up. I'll keep this question to myself. I have something to do at the newspaper office, so I have to rush out. In fact, Luochio had always admired Ron Xiling's character of doing what she said. Just like now, she hurriedly rushed into the room to change her clothes, combed her hair while walking, and skipped to get the key. Like the wind, she rushed out of the door, then rushed back, grabbed the bread that Luochio was going to eat with butter, bit it in her mouth, and rushed out the door again. I'll talk to you about working later. When she closed the door again, she hurriedly reminded him. Luochio sighed. Finally, he could eat breakfast in peace. He bit the toast and planned to watch the morning news, but he saw a file on the TV cabinet. At this time, the phone rang. Hello, Luochio? You didn't see a file with a circle drawn on it? Put on the TV cabinet. Very good. Come, my baby. Listen, can you help me send the file to my company? I'm rushing to a place, and I'm on the way. It's not convenient for me to come back. F***CK. Do you know how to drive? Accompanied by the ear-piercing roar of the horn, Rin Xiling continued. Good boy. After you send it, I'll introduce a girlfriend to you another day. Hello? Brat, you hung up on me? F***CKU. Do you know how to drive? If you annoy me, you'll get it. Go to hell, old driver. Chapter 37. Genius remembers love in 1 second / small. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. Old Master Zhong came to Guyu Zhai with Zhong Luochen's help. Zhang Qingrui was waiting for them in the lobby, leading them to Zhang Lilanfang's room upstairs. Old Master Zhong and Zhang Lilanfang just looked at each other silently, without saying anything. After a while, Old Master Zhong said, I'm here to give it back to you, Luochen. Hearing Old Master Zhong's order, Zhong Luochen opened the brocade box. Zhang Lilanfang glanced at it and nodded. Zhang Qingrui took the brocade box from Zhong Luochen. At this time, Zhang Lilanfang said, Qingrui, put it back to its original place. Remember, put it away well. Okay, Grandma. Zhang Qingrui answered softly. Zhang Lilanfang said again, Zhong Luochen, I have something to talk to your grandpa alone. You go out too. Zhong Luochen hesitated, but Old Master Zhong waved his hand. It's okay, you wait for me outside. Zhong Luochen had to say, Miss Zhang, if you don't mind, I'll go with you to put away, okay? Zhang Qingrui said indifferently, no need. Zhong Luochen smiled and didn't insist. After the 2 young people went out, Old Master Zhong sighed. Lanfang, how have you been these years? Zhang Lilanfang waved her Chong Sam, but turned her head sideways, looking at the window instead of Old Master Zhong, saying indifferently, At least I'm better than you. An old guy who almost entered the coffin. Old Master Zhong smiled bitterly. I should have entered the coffin indeed. Thanks to you. If you didn't lend me the black card, I'm afraid I couldn't come see you. Zhang Lilianfang said indifferently. It's just that your kid came to me with the jade lock. I think it's to settle some debts. Today I see you, not because I'm happy that you survived the crisis, but because I want to see what you've sold to keep your old life. I want to see how ugly you look. I'm happy to see it. Old Master Zhong sighed. Lanfang, do you still remember what happened that year? Zhang Lilianfang sneered. What? You want me to forget? Or is it that after so many years, an old woman like me should have become senile and forgotten? Old Zhong quickly said, That's not what I meant. We all know that we let you down back then. After that incident, we all felt guilty. We wanted to take good care of your Zhang family, but we didn't expect you to disappear overnight. Later, we asked around and found out that you were here. We wanted to come and find you, but we were afraid that you were still angry, so we waited until now. Then, Old Zhong said in a sobbing tone, I don't have the face to see you. If it weren't for this trip to the gates of hell, sigh. Zhang Lilianfang sneered. Don't act pitiful in front of me. I'm too familiar with your tricks. Humph. Back then, all of you were just like this, talking about all kinds of reasons and forcing my husband to go to that place in the name of righteousness. For so many years, there had been no news of him. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. Good. Very good. You're shameless enough to see me. Old Zhong shook his head. No matter what you say, I'm here to see you. This time, I'm here for two things. Looking at Zhang Lilianfang's indifferent look, he had to continue. First, I want to thank you for lending me the black card. But you said it's to repay the kindness of that year. My life was saved, but I paid a great price. Let's just take it as the past. Secondly, I hope you can agree to marry your granddaughter to my Luochin. What? Zhang Lilianfang heard that and slapped the table angrily. I dare you to say that again. Old Zhong hurriedly said, Listen to me first. This marriage will only be beneficial to your granddaughter. There will be no harm in it. Listen, I plan to make Luochin the heir of all my properties. After your granddaughter marries me, she'll be the wife of the head of the Zhong family in a short time. You should know what I mean. If Xiaolu didn't sacrifice himself, there wouldn't be our families. I'll pay him back, no matter how much I owe him. Zhang Lilianfang sneered. That's a nice way to put it. But in the end, isn't it back to you? The child's surname will be Zhang. Old Zhong said faintly. If they get married, the first child's surname will be Zhang. No matter if it's a boy or a girl, he'll be the heir of all the properties of the Zhong family. Old Zhong suddenly stood up, holding the chair and kneeling in front of Zhang Lilianfang, saying with tears, Lanfang, we're sorry. Old Zhong is here, kowtowing to apologize to you. Dong dong dong. 3 quiet but very heavy kowtows. When Zhang Qingrui was walking through the corridor, she suddenly heard something breaking. She hurriedly turned the corner, asking in panic, Man, what's wrong with you? She saw a receptionist in Guyu Zhai fall down on the ground, with a broken teacup beside her. This receptionist was called Man. She had worked here for half a year, so Zhang Qingrui certainly knew her. Miss, I'm sorry, I was serving tea to old madam and the guests, but I accidentally, Man said with a frightened face. I'm sorry. I'll pay for the broken teacup. For what? Zhang Qingrui hurriedly helped her up. Look at you. Your foot is bleeding because of the broken porcelain. It's a work injury, so we should pay for it. Miss, no need. Man hurriedly shook her head. I'm clumsy. I really don't need it. It's not a good idea for your foot to bleed. Zhang Qingrui said, Come to my office. I'll stop the bleeding for you first. I have some medicine. Miss, how can I trouble you? I'll do it myself. You're also injured, right? Can you walk? Zhang Qingrui said, Well, don't be polite with me. I'll help you. In the general manager's office, Zhang Qingrui was rummaging for something in another cabinet beside the bookcase. It's strange. I remember I put it here. Why is it gone? Man quickly glanced at Zhang Qingrui and then looked at the brocade box she put on the tea table in a hurry. She gritted her teeth, opening it quickly. She took out a black card that was almost the same as the one in the brocade box and turned it over. Man suppressed her fear and put away the black card, calming herself down. Miss, I don't think the blood is a problem. I can deal with it myself. Didn't old madam have a guest? Don't waste your time here. Found it. It's here. Zhang Qingrui turned around and hurriedly applied the medicine to Man. This medicine used to have a name, Jin Shuang ointment. Don't you think it's similar to the costume dramas on TV? But it's very effective, and it won't leave a scar. Seeing the white powder sprinkled on the wound, the bleeding stopped instantly, and the wound began to cool down. Man couldn't help sighing, God. However, this is something that only a noble lady like you can use. As for us, we're just brutes. We'll just stick a tourniquet on it and be done with it. Zhang Qingrui carefully wiped Man's wound. No matter how brute a girl is, she should take good care of herself. If you don't care about yourself, who will care about you? I seem to be fine, Man suddenly said. Zhang Qingrui said, How about this? You still sprained your foot. I'll give you half a day off to see a doctor. If your foot still hurts tomorrow, you can take another day off. Well, it's a work injury, so I'll give you a paid holiday. Don't worry. Thank you, Mississippi, Man hurriedly said. Zhang Qingrui smiled and stood up to take the brocade box. After helping Man out, she went straight to the collection room. She opened the brocade box and took out the black card. She was stunned after taking a look at it, because it didn't seem to give her the same feeling as before. She was a little confused, but her grandma had confirmed it when it was sent here, so there shouldn't be any problem. Besides, her grandma had warned her not to touch it too much since she was a little girl. Though she was curious, she could more or less feel the strangeness of the black card, so she hurriedly put it back and locked it up. After a short while, she went back to Zhang Lilinfang's room. Grandma, has the old master of the Zhong family left? Zhang Qingrui looked at Zhang Lilinfang with surprise. Zhang Lilinfang said, Did you put it back? Zhang Qingrui nodded. Yes, I put it back. Zhang Lilinfang suddenly said, Kid, come here. Zhang Qingrui walked to Zhang Lilinfang, who gently grasped her hand. If I let you marry Zhong Luochen, what will you do? Grandma, why suddenly? Zhang Qingrui's face changed slightly, but she was very calm because of her good upbringing. Answer me first. Will you agree? Zhang Qingrui shook her head directly. Zhang Lilinfang forced a smile. I know your answer. But what if I want you to marry him, whether you agree or not? Grandma, are you kidding me? Do I look like I'm kidding? Zhang Lilinfang said in a low voice. You keep asking me what happened that year. I'll tell you the truth now. Then you'll understand why I made this decision. Luochio had been to Run Xiling's workplace several times. This woman sometimes forgot something and asked him to send it here. But it was too troublesome to transfer to the bus. Luckily, it was in this city, which meant he could go anywhere he wanted. The club's transmission to the boss was usually done according to the boss's impression in the boss's memory. The deeper the impression was, the more accurate the transmission would be. Because he had been here several times, he still had some impression of Ren Xiling's office. Luochio took one step forward from home, then stepped into this office. Ren Xiling's office inherited the style of her home, which was dirty and messy. Luochio sighed, putting the file on the desk. Meanwhile, he saw a picture under the file. Curiosity was something that Luochio couldn't give up. He opened the file and took out the picture. Chapter 38. Geniuses remember love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. In an old-fashioned tea house, there was a group of people, men and women of different ages, but they were all sitting on futons, looking at an old man sitting in front of them with piety, listening to every word that came out of the old man's mouth. My spirit is distressed and wants to speak. My heart is distressed and wants to express sorrow. Anger kills the foolish. Jealousy kills the obsessed. Don't follow the schemes of the wicked. Don't stand on the path of the sinner. Don't sit on the seat of the scornful. Whoever likes to live, loves longevity, and enjoys good fortune, forbids the tongue from speaking evil words, and the lips from speaking deceitful words. The old man kept saying words that seemed to be able to warn the world. Everyone listened with fascination, and some even directly copied it down with a pen and paper. Listening to the old man's words, it was just something stolen from the teachings of a sect that believed in a man who was nailed to the cross, and it was directly stolen without any embellishment. This group of people actually took it seriously as an oracle of the spiritual God. A group of idiots. Ren Xiling couldn't help but think to herself. She was also in this group of people, but she was sitting at the back. She quietly reached out and turned the miniature lens hidden in her collar. Tried to take a picture of the old man in the front, who was called Spirit Master by these people. This was a rare opportunity for her to enter the organization. So, she needed to seize this opportunity and expose this organization called Spiritual God's Truth. I came from nothingness, and I will also go from nothingness. Life is an illusion. The old man called Spirit Master in front suddenly opened his eyes, gently waved his hand, and said, "All living things are suffering. Why not take off your clothes? Why not take off your clothes?" Everyone, including the Spirit Master, showed a solemn expression, stood up, and took off their clothes one by one, leaving nothing behind. Why not wash away our sins? Everyone began to hug each other. Ren Xiling felt that something was wrong at first, but now she was really frightened. She figured that there was no way she could continue to stay here. She wanted to take advantage of the time when these people were looking ahead and not paying attention to her to sneak away. In any case, what they had taken was already shocking enough. At the same time, it was enough to make this organization illegal and need to be banned. But just as she quietly opened the door and slipped out of the corridor, two big men walked towards her. One of them sneered, "You want to leave just like that? The Spirit Master's sermon isn't over yet." Ren Xiling took a step back and said with a smile, "I'm just an ordinary person. I don't understand these principles. I don't intend to be a carefree person anymore. If the two of you like it, you can continue. You should like the program inside. Then let's go together." Another big man smiled sinisterly. "I knew you had snuck in." Ren Xiling was stunned and ran to the other side of the corridor without thinking. Unexpectedly, two big men immediately rushed out from this direction. At this time, four big men attacked her from the front and back. Ren Xiling took a deep breath and said loudly, "You'd better not mess around. Do you think I would dare to come here without any preparation? Let me tell you, I've already contacted the police. F***CK. But the four big men didn't stop at all. At the same time, they flew towards Ren Xiling. "Love go little say W." Ren Xiling nimbly dodged left and right, and even kicked one of the big men twice. "TSK, I'm not easy to deal with." With that, Ren Xiling didn't intend to tangle with the four big men. With one hand on the railing, she turned over and jumped down from the second floor of the tea house to the lobby. This tea house was the stronghold of this organization. It wasn't open at all, so no one saw such a move. Ren Xiling jumped down and landed easily. Without thinking, she planned to rush out of the door. Unexpectedly, after running a few steps, Ren Xiling felt her legs suddenly lose strength and fell directly to the ground. She looked up and saw that the psychic master had already walked out of the room. He was only wearing a pair of pants, revealing a strong body of muscles. He didn't look like an old man at all. The psychic master's face was frightening. His hands formed a strange handprint in front of his chest. At this time, he shouted with dissatisfaction, "Trash, you can't even catch a woman. You have to let me do it myself. Hurry up and catch her for me." "What's going on?" Ren Xiling was stunned. She felt that her legs were completely numb and couldn't help but watch in horror as the four big men rushed directly from upstairs. She supported herself on the ground with both hands, trying to climb out, but her hands also became numb. Her whole body seemed to be filled with lead, and she couldn't move. "Ha ha ha! Master, this woman is much more beautiful than those idiot believers." A big man rubbed his fists and walked to Ren Xiling's side. His face revealed a sinister expression, and he reached out to grab Ren Xiling's chest. "Damn it! If I knew this would happen, I would have called the police." Ren Xiling looked at this big man helplessly, but she was a strong person. Although she thought that she might be treated badly, she still thought about how to get away. The more it was like this, the more she needed to calm down. "Take your dirty hands away." Ren Xiling suddenly stared at that big man. The big man was stunned and his hands stopped. But when he thought that he was scared by a woman who didn't have the ability to resist, he couldn't help but become angry. He grinned and said, "I will make you cry later." He didn't intend to stop his hands. That pair of full Saintus peaks would soon be played with at will. The big man's eyes even showed excitement. Unexpectedly, at this time, a sharp pain came from the big man's arm. It seemed to be hit by something fiercely. The big man even felt that the bones in his hand seemed to have been broken. That was a black long stick. No, it should be a black cane. The big man cried out in pain and quickly retreated 2 steps. But he saw that Rin Xiling's side, without knowing when, appeared out of thin air. It was a strange guy wearing a black costume, a clown mask, and a top hat. You? Who are you? Basically, different voices sounded at the same time. Rin Xiling asked in surprise. The Soul Master on the side also frowned. Call me, cough and call me clown. Wearing a clown mask and being a clown? Isn't this too casual? Of course, this was Rin Xiling's thought, but it didn't matter what she thought. The Soul Master at this time snorted and said, Humph, no matter you are a clown or something. Catch this idiot who wants to be a hero. The remaining 3 big men rushed toward the clown at the same time. Unexpectedly, the clown just casually waved the black cane in his hand, hitting one of them accurately. Moreover, the strength was abnormally terrifying. The cane just casually touched the big man's body and directly sent him flying. It didn't look like the kind of flying that sent him flying several meters away. In less than 10 seconds, the burly men were lying on the ground, wailing in pain. At this time, the clown looked at the Soul Master on the 2nd floor corridor. But the Soul Master's face slightly changed, secretly sweating. His hands quickly in front of his chest began to make hand seals again. Unexpectedly, the clown's black cane suddenly swept the tea table next to him. The black cane hit a white teacup. The teacup was like a wild horse that had escaped its reins. It shot out and accurately hit the Spirit Master's wrist bone. The whole small teacup was smashed into pieces, and the Soul Master even screamed. His wrist bone was directly broken. Under the clown mask, Luochio smiled with satisfaction. Although it was only the application of telekinesis, or something like telekinesis. But this was very similar to a martial arts master. This style was very good. Chapter 39. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. When Luochio was in Rin Xiling's office, he saw some pictures that she had secretly taken during this period of time. They were about this evil organization. When he saw these pictures, Luochio felt uneasy. This uneasy feeling reminded Luochio of Rin Xiling's appearance when she rushed out of the house in the morning. He didn't care what time it was, so he directly called Rin Xiling, but her phone was turned off. Luochio immediately returned to the club. Without any hesitation, he spent 15 minutes of his lifespan to buy the information of Rin Xiling's location from the altar. At first, he was just worried, but this worry had already become a reality by the time it came. When he saw the burly man trying to violate Rin Xiling with his obscene eyes, Luochio felt a kind of anger that had disappeared ever since his father passed away suddenly erupt in his chest. Things got out of hand. When the black cane came crashing down, it was basically Luochio venting all of his anger. He didn't use any of the club's owner's abilities. He only used the strength of his anger to break the man's bones. After this, Luochio finally calmed down a little. This woman had taken care of him for several years. What should have been her best years were all given to him. She had no regrets, and even tried to find ways to open his tightly shut heart. Day after day, he racked his brains. A few years had passed. Luochio did not feel that the window of his heart had been opened again, but she had already moved in. Although they were only family-in-law, they had feelings that surpassed that of family. For Luochio, such a woman was as important as his own life. No one was allowed to move. It had nothing to do with whether he was the owner of the club. Even if he wasn't the boss of the club and was just an ordinary person, there was nothing much he could say. He would only think about risking his life. Luochio climbed up the stairs that led to the 2nd floor. Step by step, he walked calmly. At the same time, the old man who had changed into a spirit master stood there motionlessly. His legs were trembling and his eyes were filled with fear. It wasn't that he wasn't willing to move. On the contrary, he wanted to move more than anyone else, but his body was completely unable to move. Even the air in his lungs seemed to have been sucked dry, making him feel suffocated. The spirit master couldn't help but be alarmed. He frantically tried to figure out who this clown-masked fellow who called himself a clown was. At this time, he began to recall some of the words that he had previously ignored. Those were the words of the teacher who had taught him these extraordinary methods. In this world, there are many strange people. You've only learned a little. Don't try to do evil. If you meet a real strange person with brilliant means, you'll only suffer. How could there be so many experts in the world? He had only managed to meet one after much difficulty. Who would have thought that he would really encounter it? At this time, Luaccio had already walked in front of the spirit master. The spirit master hurriedly said in fear, Let me go. I was just possessed for a moment. I promise. I won't commit any crimes in the future. I beg you. Luaccio used his cane to push open the door of the next room. He took a look at the situation inside, and soon decided not to look anymore. A group of men and women were doing improper things inside. Moreover, they seemed to have lost their natural instincts and were doing it recklessly. This scene was already leaning towards a strange side. I didn't harm anyone. These people more or less have some darkness in their hearts. The spirit master said in a timid voice, Don't believe him. Don't know how much wealth this fellow has accumulated. There are several people here who are about to have their families ruined. Rin Xiling shouted from afar. Luaccio used his cane to lightly knock on the railing. Rin Xiling's mouth instantly closed. She was frightened to find that she couldn't speak. She couldn't help but look at this clown in shock and fear. Well, although she was said to be the most important woman in his life. But sometimes Luaccio really hoped that Rin Xiling could shut up, so it was better to let her shut up. But the effect of her words had already appeared. The spirit master became more frightened at this time. His face was full of uneasiness. He wanted to say something, but stopped. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth and said something wrong, it would bring about bad consequences. Luaccio said indifferently at this time, What about these people inside has nothing to do with me. What you said is not wrong. If the people inside are smart, they naturally won't be so easily bewitched. They only have themselves to blame and can't blame others. Hearing this, the spirit master hurriedly said, I will let them return to normal. From now on, I promise I won't do it again. Luaccio said, You want me to let you go? The spirit master hurriedly nodded. Luaccio said indifferently, Then what are you going to use to trade? Let me let you go. This is what you want, right? Money. I will give you all the money. The spirit master said without thinking. Luaccio shook his head and said, Money is useless to me. To be honest, although these people who you harmed are asking for it, I don't intend to do anything for them. But I don't like it when I see this, so I have the intention to kill you. I will want to kill you. In other words, you want to buy your life. What do you think you can give me that is worth your life? I don't know, the spirit master said in horror. Please say. No matter what it is, I will give it to you. Luaccio didn't say much. He tapped the spirit master's forehead with his black cane and said, Indeed, bad people can live for 1,000 years. It seems that it's true. You still have 60 years to live. But I think that people like you can live for another 2 or 3 years is the limit. 58 years. You can use your 58 years to buy me not to kill you. Of course, you can also choose not to buy it. I won't force you. Use his life to buy his life. The spirit master didn't think so. What kind of logic was this? This life could be exchanged like this? Was there something wrong with this guy's brain? But no matter what, if he could talk, he wasn't willing to die in this place. He had heard his teacher say that the people with special abilities walking in this world were all eccentric people with unfathomable thoughts. The spirit master took a deep breath and probed, If I sell, will you really let me go? Yes, Luaccio said indifferently. As long as you sell, I won't lie. The spirit master clenched his teeth and said, You are an expert outside of this world. I believe that you won't cheat a small person like me. You also disdain to cheat a small person like me. But how do you want to sell it? Could it be that you want me to live for another 3 or 5 years before coming to kill me? The spirit master couldn't help but think in this direction. In short, he had to survive this disaster first. After 3 or 5 years, he didn't believe that this strange guy could still find him. Luaccio said, You only need to agree to sell. Sell or not sell? I'll sell. Luaccio suddenly smiled and said, "Thank you for your patronage, respected guest. I won't kill you now." The spirit master suddenly felt his body relax. His hands and feet could move freely. But he didn't dare to be rash and quickly said, "Thank you. Thank you, master. I promise that I won't do it again." As if, "Let me escape. I'll be free." But he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Although his body was free, a powerless feeling suddenly spread through his whole body. The spirit master looked at his hands in horror. They were actually starting to shrivel up. At this time, even the bulging muscles on his body were starting to shrink. His body had become crooked, and his originally white hair and youthful face was now covered in wrinkles. Even his teeth had begun to fall out at this time, leaving only a few hanging on his gums. What did you do to me?" The spirit master was shocked and angry. He looked at his body's changes in disbelief. Luaccio said indifferently, "The process of life is generally irreversible. You don't have 58 years of life. What's so strange about the remaining 2 years of life?" You lied to me." The spirit master was very angry. He didn't even think about it and rushed toward Luaccio. But he was already on the verge of death. Not to mention Luaccio, the club's boss. Even an ordinary adult could push him to the ground with a light push. The spirit master's knee was hit by the black cane. His whole body fell to the ground. He struggled, but couldn't get up. How did he become like this? Ren Xiling actually climbed up at this time. It was probably because the method he used on Ren Xiling lost its effect when he was collecting the spirit master's lifespan. As for Luaccio telling her to shut up, she just shut up for a while. He couldn't bear to be too strict with this woman. Luaccio stretched out his black cane and slid it on the spirit master's face. The black cane shaved off the spirit master's beard. This guy's not old at all, probably because he pretended to be an old man and showed his strong muscles. It was more deceptive. But now Ren Xiling played the special role of a reporter. Luaccio still told Ren Xiling to shut up. "I'm leaving. You take care of this." Luaccio said indifferently, "These people can't hurt you." He knocked his cane on the floor, and the men and women who were having S*X in a room instantly fell to the ground and fainted. The 4 men downstairs were the same. "I left you 2 years, not because I think you're qualified to live for 2 more years." Luaccio finally looked at the spirit master. Before he fainted, he said indifferently, "It's because I think you need to spend at least the remaining 2 years to repent for what you have done. Well, it should be in prison or something." The spirit master then fainted with a face full of unwillingness. Luaccio finally looked at Ren Xiling. "It's better not to tell others that you've seen me. It's easy for me to know your background. Naturally, it's easy for me to know who you are and what important people you have." After saying something similar to a warning, Luaccio calmly walked down the stairs. He opened the door of the tea house and walked out. At this time, Ren Xiling suddenly shuddered and felt as if she had finally come back to life. Holy **T. Did I really meet a celestial being? Clown immortal? What is this? Yin 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 yin. Chapter 40. A genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Several police cars were parked there, as well as 3 escort vans. There were already warning fences all around, and 2 policemen were standing guard at the entrance with their hands behind their backs. This was something that happened several hours later. This group of reporters is just like flies. Officer Ma looked at the group of reporters who were blocked outside the door and kept pressing the shutters. He couldn't help but frown. These guys were so well informed that they sometimes even surpassed the police. It was simply unbelievable. "According to what you said, I am also a type of fly." A dissatisfied voice suddenly sounded behind Officer Ma. Officer Ma turned around with a serious expression. Because of the scar on his face that he had left on a case in his early years, his face suddenly looked like a bitter gourd. He looked at the person who had said those words with a sarcastic tone. "A very beautiful woman." "That's not what I meant, sister-in-law. Tisk." Ren Xiling clicked her tongue. Officer Ma could only smile awkwardly. The people who worked for Officer Ma were basically rubbing their eyes. They looked at the officer Ma, who was famous for his hot temper, in disbelief. It was really the biggest news of the year. Could it be that Officer Ma had taken a fancy to this beauty? What nonsense are you thinking? Didn't you hear Officer Ma call her sister-in-law? She was the widow of one of the older brothers who had taken care of Officer Ma. Officer Ma treats her with the same respect as a teacher's wife. Widow? Holy shit. At this age? Don't meddle in things that are none of your business. Anyway, if you need to give a statement later, you better be polite. Otherwise, you'll suffer when you get back to the police station. If you offended Officer Ma, he wouldn't care about it. At most, he would argue with you. If you offend this woman, she won't hold it against you. But Officer Ma promises to fight you to the death. On the other side, Officer Ma pulled Ren Xiling to the side and asked nervously, "Sister-in-law, how could you be so bold as to sneak into such a terrifying place alone? It's not that I want to nag at you, but can you not work so hard like before? If something were to happen to you, how would I have the face to see Big Brother Luochio?" "All right, cut the crap," Ren Xiling said directly. "I've recorded the whole process of these guys preaching. I'll give you a copy of it later as evidence." Officer Ma quickly nodded and said, "Yes, sister-in-law." He then asked hesitantly, "Sister-in-law, were you the one who knocked down these people?" Ren Xiling remembered what the clown had said, so she said vaguely, "What? You don't believe in my skills?" Officer Ma quickly shook his head and said, "That's not what I meant, but I have to write this report." Ren Xiling looked at Officer Ma like he was an idiot and said impatiently, "After so many years, your brain still doesn't work well, right? Can't you say that this group of people had internal strife because they couldn't split the loot evenly? Then you received a tip-off and immediately led a team to arrest them? I don't know anything. I just came here to interview." Officer Ma beamed with joy and said, "Sister-in-law, you're indeed a pen grabber. Your brain works well. Don't flatter me." Ren Xiling waved her hand and suddenly thought of something and said in a low voice, "But this group of people saw me, so I don't know if they have any accomplices. I'm fine, but you'd better be careful. I don't want anything to happen to Luochio." Officer Ma said in a low voice, "Sister-in-law, don't worry. Whoever dares to touch Big Brother's child, I'll be the first to fight him to death. Not only me, but a group of brothers who followed Big Brother will never let him go." Ren Xiling nodded and finally said, "By the way, that old man is a bit strange. You'd better let your subordinates watch him closely. Well, it's best to tie his hands." Officer Ma was stunned, but still nodded. "Sister-in-law, I'll ask someone to send you back." "No, I have to go back to the newspaper office later. This is big news." Ren Xiling just sat at her car and put on a seatbelt, but Officer Ma chased after her. "Sister-in-law, wait." Officer Ma stopped Ren Xiling and said shyly, "It's like this, there's something I want to ask you for help with." Ren Xiling frowned and said, "What's wrong?" Officer Ma said quietly, "It's like this, recently we are investigating a transnational crime case. I know you have a lot of connections, so I want to ask you for help to investigate a person. You also know that some things are not convenient for us to do openly." Ren Xiling thought for a while and said, "Well, give me the person's information." Officer Ma said solemnly at this time, "But sister-in-law, you can investigate, but don't do it yourself like this time, okay? Anyway, you just do the business of buying and selling information. Promise me, don't put yourself in danger. Otherwise, I'd rather not ask for your help." Ren Xiling sighed, stared at Officer Ma and scolded, "You are just like my mother." Officer Ma said with a bitter face, "No, no, no, you are my mother. My biological mother. My great aunt. Please don't do dangerous things anymore. F*CKU. I don't have a son as old as you." Ren Xiling wrinkled her nose and said, "I only have one son, and he is much more handsome than you. Of course. After all, he is Brother Luo's son. How can he not be handsome?" Ren Xiling was happy to hear this, and stepped on the gas pedal, speeding away. Officer Ma shouted helplessly, "Sister-in-law, slow down. There are a lot of fines this month. I can't handle it." After returning to the hotel, Chang Yun reported some things to Zhong Luo Chun and excused himself to leave. But in fact, after walking around outside, he went to a nearby coffee shop to meet with the third miss of the Zhong family. This is that black card. The third miss of the Zhong family took the black card from Cheng Yun's hand and looked at it carefully. Yes, I specially asked someone to forge one. The size should be about the same. After all, it is calculated according to the size of the second young master's palm. The third miss of the Zhong family nodded. Well, you go back first. Don't let the second brother suspect. After a pause, the third miss of the Zhong family added, there will be enough money to your account. Cheng Yun immediately beamed with joy. Thank you, third miss. Then I will go back now. Well, that guy? The third miss of the Zhong family looked at the direction that surprised Cheng Yun and found that it was just an ordinary-looking young man who was ordering something at the front desk. Who is that? The third miss of the Zhong family asked. Cheng Yun said, I don't know, but he might be someone that Miss Zhong knows, and they seem to be very close. The third miss of the Zhong family suddenly said, that Miss Zhong doesn't seem to like my second brother very much, right? Cheng Yun said, she is quite indifferent. As for whether she likes him or not, it's hard to say. After all, there are many ways to move a woman, as long as you can find the right one. The third miss of the Zhong family suddenly smiled. Cheng Yun, it seems that you know women very well. Cheng Yun hurriedly said, they're just ordinary women, like you. Third miss, I dare not to say that I know you well. The third miss of the Zhong family said indifferently, go, find out the details of this guy. Maybe it will be useful. Cheng Yun nodded, and at this time, lowered his head and left from the door. The third miss of the Zhong family began to carefully observe the black card in her hand. There was a golden mark on it. When she looked at it, she felt that she couldn't take her eyes off it. She couldn't help being absent-minded. Luoqiu, who had just finished buying things from the counter, leisurely walked past the glass window. It could be considered as passing by. In fact, the shopping street was not far away. After leaving the tea house, Luoqiu didn't go far, but hid in the distance. He didn't leave until he saw Run Xiling leave safely. Although he saw Officer Ma, he knew Officer Ma, his father's brother. It was just inappropriate to greet him. Thinking that it was past lunchtime, there was no need to bother Yu Yi. So he simply bought something to eat in a nearby coffee shop. This coffee shop's cake was actually quite famous in the neighborhood. After returning to the club, Luoqiu changed into the club owner's attire, sitting behind counter. He put aside the cake he bought from the coffee shop and the black tea Yu Yi made for him. Luoqiu turned on the gramophone and played some music while reading The Origin of Blue and White Porcelain. In this way, he could sit for half a day. Chapter 41. Genius remembers love in 1 second / small. This is a wonderful novel for you to read. In the hospital, Jiang Chu was sitting silently in his office with a lot on his mind. At the same time, there was another woman in the office. She was his ex-wife. Jiang Chu, tell me honestly what's wrong with the child? Jiang Chu said dejectedly, his body is rejecting the transplant. The woman's face darkened. Rejecting? How could it be? You said you found a bone marrow match, so I agreed to the operation. Now you're telling me there's rejection? Jiang Chu said impatiently. Do you know how hard it is to find a bone marrow match for your son? I've tried my best to find a suitable one, but I failed in the end. Then what should we do? If it's rejecting, shouldn't we be able to control it? Jiang Chu shook his head. I can't answer this question. Now, we can only see the degree of rejection. We have to wait for the detailed test report to know the details. But, no matter what, I won't let anything happen to the child. You go and take care of the child. I want to be alone. After his ex-wife left, Jiang Chu leaned on the chair, staring at the ceiling blankly. Why is it like this? Why? Not only did he diagnose the early stage of platinum syndrome, but his son's life was also in danger. Jiang Chu closed his eyes in pain. At this moment, he seemed to see the eager eyes of the little girl waiting for him to perform the operation, and the face of the child lying on the sickbed, being tortured. The two were intertwined like a whirlpool that couldn't be pulled out. Jiang Chu felt as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. He opened his eyes abruptly, his head full of cold sweat. Only then did he realize he had fallen asleep due to exhaustion. First, he complained about the malice of the guy who invented the mobile phone GPS Luoqiu sent his location to Rin Xiling's phone. It probably wouldn't take long for her to quietly appear nearby, right? The so-called working place. Generally speaking, it was normal for college students to work part-time to experience life. Rin Xiling wouldn't object, but because of her overflowing motherly love, she was worried about where Luochio was working, whether it was a proper place or not. Therefore, in order to avoid the trouble of returning home late in the future, Luochio decided to work properly for one night. The choice of location had to be carefully considered. Basically, the locked-on areas were places that Rin Xiling didn't go often or even wouldn't go at all. Moreover, after one observation, she would feel that there was no problem and wouldn't come back in the future. What's more, it was a job that college students often did and were easier to find. Teacher, is this appropriate? Let me see. That's right, Luochio didn't need to face too many people, and it was a job that suited his personality. Lastly, he didn't need too many extras tutoring. It was a very simple matter. Asking Yu Yi to use hypnotism to find a mother and son who were strolling around? Father and daughter? Mother and daughter. Anything would do. As long as they looked to be at the age where they needed a tutor and could afford a tutor, it would be fine. But I don't know if Yu Yi was more inclined towards beautiful things. Luochio was tutoring a female high school student. A first-year high school student. Was it because she had developed too well? High school students nowadays. As for the parent of the student that Luochio was tutoring, she looked like a well-educated and well-mannered woman. Did she take care of herself too well? A beautiful witch? But thinking that the other party was doing this show for him without knowing and didn't even get a salary, Luochio thought that at least he should properly teach this high school girl. Although he didn't know if this kind of one-off tutoring would be helpful, at least he could help her solve a few problems during tutoring. He chose to teach at a relatively quiet Western restaurant near the business street, and then the location was near the floor-to-ceiling glass window. He's really tutoring. Rin Xiling was eating hamburgers on the side of the road and drinking pitifully. She stood like this for more than 10 minutes. Although she was happy to see Luochio choose to work after school to experience life, but did this girl develop too well? And why does her mother take care of herself so well? A beautiful witch? A carnivorous witch who specializes in eating young men? Deputy Editor Run had a brain that was good at thinking, and she had a montage of thoughts. She took a sip of Coke and couldn't stop the imagination in her mind. Could it be a mother and daughter thing? As if she saw the scene of Luochio with a young and cute daughter on his left and a beautiful and generous mother on his right, Rin Xiling felt terrible. She absolutely couldn't let this happen. Deputy Editor Rin threw the unfinished hamburgers and Coke directly into the trash can and rushed into the Western restaurant. Luochio probably didn't expect Rin Xiling to rush in directly. He was stunned and couldn't say a word. Who is this? The girl's mother looked at the woman who suddenly appeared and looked at Luochio in confusion. When Luochio was about to speak, Rin Xiling smiled and said, "Hello, I'm Luochio's sister. You can call me Xiling. I just got off work and heard from my brother that he's tutoring here, so I can't pick him up. Am I disturbing you?" "It's okay." The girl's mother smiled gracefully and took out a packet of tissue from her bag, took out a piece, and gave it to Rin Xiling. Rin Xiling was stunned. Luochio had to point at his mouth unhappily. Rin Xiling subconsciously touched her mouth. Oh my God! She didn't notice the sauce on her face when she was eating the hamburger. No wonder when she came in, the waiter at the door looked at her with a weird expression. Thank you." Rin Xiling smiled embarrassedly and reached out to wipe the sauce on her face. Let's call it a day. It's almost time." The girl's mother smiled and stood up. "Teacher Luo, I'll have to trouble you next time." "There shouldn't be a next time." But Luochio still nodded. The girl's mother said, "Then I won't disturb you too. Ping Ting, say goodbye to them." The girl's name was Ping Ting. Luochio sat down directly. Only now did he know the girl's name. "Goodbye, teacher, goodbye, big sister." The girl said goodbye very politely. Watching the beautiful mother and daughter leave, Luochio heaved a sigh of relief and complained, "I thought you would just take a look from the outside at most. And what the hell is big sister?" Rin Xiling said with grievance, "I'm doing this for you. If your mother is so young and beautiful, what will other people think of you?" Luaccio sighed and said, "It's good to be confident, but can you wipe your mouth before eating next time? And can you not add mayonnaise when you eat hamburger next time?" Rinziling opened her eyes wide and said, "Look at you. What are you talking about? Dirty." Luaccio decided to skip this rather delicate topic. "Are you full?" "Not bad." Rinziling touched her belly and said. Luaccio shook his head and called the waiter. He ordered a seafood pasta and a fruit salad for Rinziling and said indifferently, "It's too late. Eat something light." Rinziling kissed Luaccio's face without thinking and said, "Good boy. You're my mother." Luaccio wiped his face and moved to the end of the soft card seat. He leaned against the window and took out the book, The Origin of Blue and White Porcelain, and started to read without saying anything. Looking at Luaccio's appearance, it was still the same as before. Rinziling felt that her previous worries were unnecessary. She began to enjoy the food that was served. An unusually beautiful girl, who looked like a model, quietly walked past the mother and daughter. Perhaps it was really because she was too beautiful. The mother and daughter could not help but look at her twice at the same time. When the night wind blew, the girl's mother suddenly shivered and said absent-mindedly, "Strange, where is this?" Ji Pingting also looked at her mother in confusion. At this time, a black card quietly glided in the night sky and finally slipped into Ji Pingting's mother's handbag without anyone noticing. "Let's go back." "Okay." Yin 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 PS1. Popular science. Jing jing the third sound. Gu tong jing. Ah. PS2. It's the standard little tale that likes to be recommended and rewarded equals. Chapter 42. Genius 1 second remember love /go/little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. After sacrificing the lifespan he got from the psychic master, Luaccio gained 200 days of lifespan. After deducting the sporadic usage, Luaccio found that he could live for another year from 30 days at the beginning. With the increase of the number of transactions and the frequency of sacrifice, this number would only increase. The Black Soul envoys didn't need to learn much. One was how to make information cards, and the other was how to bewitch potential customers. It was unknown whether Taiyinzi was a Taoist or not, but he showed excellent progress in learning these skills. In less than 2 days, Taiyinzi went out as an intern to bring customers to the club. "Master, it's the 3rd day, but Jiang Chu doesn't seem to want to come." Yi brought 2 sandwiches and a glass of orange juice to Luaccio for lunch and talked about this matter casually. Luaccio leisurely picked up the sandwich, but his eyes didn't leave the book he was reading. He didn't care too much about it, probably because he thought there might be a chance. His son won't be able to hold on for long. "Last night, I gave that woman a black card with no discount," Yi suddenly said while wiping on the counter casually. Luaccio gave a start, saying after a moment of silence, "So be it. But next time, Prophet will inform me and wait for my permission." Yi understands. The maid's occasional wiping became lighter, and a smile appeared on her face. Luaccio noticed these details, his eyes falling on a line of words on a page of the origin of the blue and white flower. How should he explain it? From Yuye's point of view, there was nothing wrong with it. The purpose of the club's existence was to trade and sacrifice, so it was understandable that she would look for suitable candidates. On the other hand, it was probably because the former boss was too lazy and passive. After changing to a new boss, this 300 years old employee hoped to make some changes. Of course, it was also possible that she wanted to get more transaction fees for the club's owner, or to prevent Luaccio from dying. But it was also possible that Yi had some mechanism that she didn't realize. Luaccio didn't completely trust this old employee from the beginning. Maybe it was because it would take a long time. That was the way people interacted with each other. On the other hand, the club itself was extremely important to the boss and had an unimaginable temptation. By continuously trading, one would be able to enjoy an endless life. As the number of trades increased, one would obtain even more unimaginable abilities. It sounded very attractive and also very motivating, right? He really wanted to plunge headfirst into this place so that his lifespan would be limitless, so that he would possess greater strength, right? And then he would be addicted to countless transactions. Even if he had hundreds of years, even thousands of years, or even more, so what? He would only want to get more. And for this, he would constantly repeat the boring transactions. Only when the transactions were successful would there be ripples in his heart, and only then could he bring himself a little satisfaction. What was the difference between such a situation and Zhong Luochen, who was deprived of happiness? Or would he only know how to bring endless sacrifices to the club? Or would he become like the former boss, because he couldn't stand the loneliness or saw through it, and became like a walking corpse? Thinking about this, Luochen suddenly understood that the investor needed to resist his own desires and desires. As for him, the only thing he needed to do, as the club's owner, was not to think about how to make his life unlimited, but how to maintain himself every time he improved. Giving you an unlimited lifespan, giving you earth-shattering abilities, but you don't even know who you are and have lost your nature. In the end, I'm afraid I'm the biggest and most special financier behind the club, right? Originally, if he wasn't as passive as the former boss and let nature take its course, his life would gradually accumulate. For example, now, it should have been less than 10 days, but from the original 30 days, it had become a year. Yi, we're not open today. Accompany me for a walk. Luochen suddenly closed the book in his hand, looked at Yi with a surprised expression, and said with a smile, "If someone comes, we'll know, and it'll be convenient to ask them to come back. But it's a waste of time, so it's not bad to walk outside for a change." "But where are we going?" Yi asked puzzledly. Luochen smiled and said, "Do you still remember the first time I made a deal? I was the one who made the decision personally. How about we go to the hospital?" Yi said without thinking. That's because before the first deal, the owner didn't have the ability to buy the investor's information. But now it's different. There's no need for that kind of trivial thing. Luochen said, "Is there no need? But I just want to remember the times when I was with you, not just the four walls of the club." Yi said indifferently, "Time will dilute the memories." Luochen said something suitable for his age, then keep creating. Even if you forget, you can revisit the old place. If you can't, you could take photos. There are many ways. Yi didn't insist, nodded and said softly, then, "Please wait for a moment." In the dark alley, a man was running in a hurry. His strong hands ensured that he was able to move freely in this dirty and messy alley. But why was his hiding place exposed? Did someone betray him? Those hateful cops. Do they think they can catch me like this? 100 years too early. Bang! Suddenly, a loud noise sounded, and the man immediately felt a piercing pain, and his whole body fell to the ground. There was an obvious bloody hole on his thigh. The man painfully covered the wound and turned his head to look behind him, only to see a middle-aged man wearing a khaki windbreaker leisurely walking over. It was the cop who suddenly brought people to his hiding place. The man gritted his teeth and quietly moved his hand. But the moment he moved his hand, he took a bullet. The bullet pierced through his palm, causing him to scream in agony once again. "Idiot! Don't you know I'm the shooting number one in the police station? I can still shoot your head if you're a little further away." Just as the police officer's voice fell, several plainclothes rushed out from the back alley and directly pressed the man to the ground. "Officer Ma, you're so awesome. You actually found this guy's hiding place so quickly." A plainclothes officer immediately said respectfully, "I wonder what kind of powerful informant you are. If you can, introduce me to him." "Tisk, do I have to tell you that I have a powerful sister-in-law who has many eyes and ears?" Officer Ma coldly snorted and said, "Don't be happy too early. This guy is just a contact. The real big fish is still behind. Take this guy back for me and interrogate him properly. I want him to spit out everything he knows." Bah, this group of scum. If I wasn't still wearing this uniform, I would have decisively shot his head. The plainclothes officer could only pretend not to hear. What should he say? If it wasn't for this kind of personality, and if he didn't often come out with this kind of speech, which gave the higher-ups an abnormal headache, this police officer would probably have already entered the higher-ups, right? At this moment, Officer Ma's phone suddenly rang. He impatiently picked up the phone, and then his face slightly changed, and he scolded, "Are you idiots? How can a person die in the police station?" Officer Ma received the news that the leader of the evil cult that they had just captured, the old guy who claimed to be a spiritual master, had just committed suicide. Damn it. What era is this? There's actually someone who bit his tongue to commit suicide? Are you kidding me? Officer Ma frowned and angrily escorted the man into the police car. Yin 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 PS1. If this chapter is boring, please don't blame me. The content wasn't originally like this, but it was later deleted and rewritten. A true powerhouse will use self-discipline to regulate himself. Logically speaking, when a person has power but doesn't have the corresponding temperament and self-discipline, sooner or later, he will be addicted to such power and gradually lose his nature. Boss Luo is still young and hasn't gone to the spa yet, manually crossed out. I don't want him to become a psychopath who is above all living things, because this isn't a cultivation novel. Hey, equals PS2. Let me add to the settings of this book. I don't want to be swept away by the harmonious storm, so I have to use the parallel world card, although it's not very useful. PS3. Thank you, Tyrant and Meow, for your tips. Chapter 43. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Jiang Chu, your child's condition is worse than expected. Where did you find the bone marrow? His colleague frowned, looking at Dr. Jiang Chu with an ugly expression. Jiang Chu hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" His colleague sighed. Jiang Chu, this kind of rejection usually happens when there's a mismatch, and it's almost fatal. I don't know where your child was operated on, but could there be something wrong? Under normal circumstances, there shouldn't be such a mistake. This is basically a murder. How could this happen? Jiang Chu was stunned and then rushed out of his colleague's office in a panic. He lowered his head, not looking at anyone, as if he was on a rampage. Jiang Chu, what are you doing? He really met someone. It was the dean, and also Jiang Chu's teacher. Teacher, Jiang Chu was so flustered that he couldn't say a word. The dean sighed. I know about your child's condition, and I'm very sorry for what happened. How about this? You're not in a good condition now, so I'll arrange another doctor to replace you for today's operation. You should spend some time with your family these days. I'm also contacting some overseas hospitals to see if there's any way. Jiang Chu shook his head. Dean, I want to be alone. The dean nodded, sighing and leaving. He really felt sorry for him. This was supposed to be an opportunity to promote him, but now that such a thing happened and the patient knew about it, of course he wouldn't let Jiang Chu do the operation. If he was distracted during the operation, it could be fatal at any moment. Jiang Chu walked alone in the corridor like a walking corpse. Were those girls who passed by in a hurry talking about him? Were his colleagues looking at him with pity? Or were they mocking him? Jiang Chu walked to the ward of the child who was supposed to be the chief surgeon and found that there was another doctor checking the situation and stabilizing the patient's emotions. Love go little say, W. Chu didn't blame the director for replacing him at this time. Not to mention whether he could really hold the scalpel, he really couldn't feel at ease in the current situation. It would be better to say that giving up on this operation was more like a form of relief for him. He could not face the little girl's yearning gaze. Jiang Chu came to the rooftop of the hospital alone. Trembling, he took out his phone from his pocket and hesitated for a long time before dialing a certain number. Mr. Sun? A hoarse and synthetic voice came from the other end. It was Mr. Sun's voice. Dr. Jiang, it just so happens that I have something to talk to you about. Jiang Chu said in a low voice. Let's not talk about that now. Mr. Sun, there's something I need to ask you. Is the bone marrow you provided to my son a match? Mr. Sun continued. Now that Black Cat has been caught, the local police should be able to find you soon. I've arranged for you to leave immediately. What? Jiang Chu's expression suddenly changed, but at this moment, he suddenly shuddered and said, No, I can't leave. I can't leave my son alone. Mr. Sun said indifferently, You're still young. It's not difficult for you to have children. But if you don't leave, it's not good news for us. Black Cat is just a contact. It doesn't know much, but you know how much you know. We won't let you be caught by the police. You should understand what I mean, right? Jiang Chu roared like a madman. Tell me, is the bone marrow you provided my son a match? 1 hour later, someone will come and pick you up. You can only choose to leave or stay here forever. Remember, We don't lack doctors. Beep. Half an hour. Jiang Chu's hand slipped, and the phone fell to the ground. He sat down weakly on the ground. Mr. Sun was resourceful. If he said 1 hour, it would be 1 hour. He wouldn't live a minute more or less. He gritted his teeth and rushed down from the rooftop. The iron door of the rooftop made a loud bang. At the same time, the crisp sound of high heels hitting the cement slab was heard. Master, Jiang Chu is at his wit's end, right? Do you think he will choose to leave or stay? Luochio thought for a while. It depends on how deep his love for his son is. Yi nodded and said, but I'm beginning to understand why Master came to the hospital. Luochio asked curiously why. Yu Yi smiled. The hospital is a place where hope and despair coexist. It's also a place where life and death converge. Regardless of whether they were patients or family members, they would all feel despair and helplessness. It's really a good place to cultivate potential customers. Yu Yi will ask Black Soul envoys to pay more attention to the hospital in the future. Wait a minute. Is there some kind of misunderstanding? It must be a misunderstanding, right? I just came out for a walk and to check on Jiang Chu's condition, but he didn't intend to correct Yu Ye's idea. Instead, he muttered, 1 hour, it's time to make a decision. 1 hour? 1 hour. He was well aware of the terror behind Mr. Sunday. He only had 1 hour left. No, it could be 59 minutes or even 58 minutes. Jiang Chu hurried down the stairs. A group of medical staff was pushing a bed past him. It was the girl who was supposed to be operated on. The little girl didn't know much about the world. She smiled when she saw the doctor she had seen before. In the midst of his haste, this smile caused ripples in Jiang Chu's heart. He suddenly stopped his footsteps and supported himself against the wall, feeling as if he was about to collapse. Unknowingly, Jiang Chu came to another ward. His exhausted ex-wife leaned against his son's bed, grabbing his son's hand and falling asleep. Jiang Chu didn't dare to make a sound. He walked to the bed and looked at his son with a complicated expression. He was supposed to have a happy life. Yes, he should have if the bone marrow was compatible. Jiang Chu reached out his trembling hand, wanted to touch his son's face, but he withdrew his hand abruptly. He gritted his teeth and walked out of the ward. He walked to the small park downstairs of the hospital and sat on the stone bench. Then he started to daydream. 1 hour later, Jiang Chu was still sitting at the same place until an ordinary-looking man in a black suit approached him. Dr. Jiang, Mr. Sun asked me to pick you up. Please leave. Jiang Chu raised his head slowly, looking at the man. He patted the bench beside him and said, Don't be impatient. Sit down. I have a few questions that I want to ask you. The man frowned, saying coldly, Dr. Jiang, I hope you won't make it difficult for me. Please leave with me now. Looking at the man's action of reaching into his pocket, Jiang Chu sneered. What? I've done so much for Mr. Sun, but in the end, you don't even want to spare me a few minutes? However, the man calmly took out a folded military knife from his bosom. Mr. Sun said that if Dr. Jiang doesn't cooperate, you don't have to stay here. The man was about to make a move, but at this moment, a thunderous voice suddenly sounded. Suddenly, 6 or 7 figures rushed out from the surroundings. The one leading them was Officer Ma. Don't move. You've been surrounded. Put down the weapon and surrender. The man's cold eyes stared at Jiang Chu's face. Jiang Chu's lips trembled, saying agitatedly, You cheated me with the fake bone marrow. Don't blame me for being heartless. I'll call the police. I'll expose everything about you. Ha ha ha. Since they have already found me, I won't be able to escape. Let's all die together. The man snorted, stabbing Jiang Chu's neck calmly. Bang! A gunshot sounded at the same time. The man's wrist was hit by the bullet, and the military knife fell to the ground. Damn it! I told you I'm the sharpshooter in the bureau. Damn it! You don't listen. Catch him. F***CK. Useless. Stop him. Don't let him escape. F***CK off. Go after him. Go F***CK, all of you if he escapes. The hot-tempered Officer Ma flew into a rage. Sir Ma, our brothers are looking around. He's injured and can't escape. What should we do with this guy? 2 plainclothes escorted Jiang Chu to Officer Ma. Officer Ma said, What else can we do? This guy is an important witness, Send him back immediately. Watch him carefully. Well, stuff this guy's mouth with something and tie him up. Damn it. Officer, before I leave, can I see my son one more time? I beg you. Jiang Chu suddenly begged. Officer Ma sneered, what? Now you've got a conscience and remember your son? Did your conscience get eaten by a dog when you helped this group of scumbags take human organs to sell? Jiang Chu's face turned pale, kneeling on the ground painfully, begging, please let me see my son one last time. He can't hold on for long. Chapter 44. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, /go/little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Officer Ma took off Jiang Chu's white coat and wrapped it around his handcuffed hands. Then, he warned, you have 5 minutes. Thank you. Jiang Chu choked with sobs. Officer Ma called over 2 assistants and ordered, keep an eye on him. Bring him back to the police station when the time is up. Understood. Officer Ma nodded and watched the 2 leave with Jiang Chu. He cursed and walked towards another direction. However, before he could take 2 steps, his phone rang. Officer Ma picked it up and nodded after listening to the conversation. You bunch of bastards, you've done well this time. How did you manage to capture him so quickly? The other side of the phone said, that guy rushed into the back alley of the hospital. When we chased after him, he fainted on the ground. It seemed that he was hit by a flower pot that fell from upstairs. Officer Ma was stunned. First, a criminal committed suicide by biting his tongue. Now a scumbag was hit by a flower pot. Was this karma? After walking out of the elevator, they arrived at the second room at the end of the corridor. It was his son's ward. Jiang Chu lowered his head. 2 plainclothes officers followed him at a steady pace. Occasionally, people walking along the corridor would look at him strangely. The white coat hanging from his hands was probably for his psychological comfort. With 2 officers following behind him, it was easy for people to think of something. Jiang Chu even saw some familiar nurses. They wanted to talk to him, but he shook his head and stopped them. He smiled bitterly. He had walked along this corridor often, but he had never felt it was so long. Officers, can you let me go in alone later? I promise I won't run away. Besides, I can't run away. Jiang Chu turned around and begged them. One of the officers thought for a while and nodded. They were on the 7th floor. Jiang Chu's hands were still handcuffed. It was impossible for him to escape. At this moment, a cleaner pushed a trolley from the front. 2 plainclothes guards took Jiang Chu to the side and made way. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the cleaner suddenly pushed the cart towards the 3 of them. With a wave of his sleeve, a dagger slipped out of his sleeve. The cleaner caught the dagger instantly and was about to stab Jiang Chu. But at this moment, a bottle of mineral water that was thrown from a distance smashed into the cleaner's head. This full bottle of water was no less powerful than a heavy punch. The cleaner suddenly felt dizzy. By the time he reacted, he was already pinned to the ground by 2 plainclothes officers. He couldn't move at all. At this moment, Officer Ma walked over with a cold smile. UF * King Retard. I knew you had some tricks up your sleeves. Do you think I will let this guy come up so casually? The cleaner who was being held down didn't say a word. He just stared at Officer Ma. Officer Ma snorted and handcuffed the cleaner. Then he called another plainclothes policeman to guard the cleaner at the same time. You take this guy over and let him go in alone. Officer Ma ordered. Jiang Chu glanced at this officer, who liked to swear gratefully. He lowered his head and walked to the end of the corridor silently. Officer Ma lit a cigarette while looking at the cleaner. Officer Ma, this is a hospital. Officer Ma was stunned. He put out the cigarette with an irritated face, saying, You're dead. Scum, you'd better cooperate with us. The cleaner suddenly smiled strangely. Officer, you're so smart. You know we have a trick up our sleeve. Officer Ma sneered. I've eaten more salt than you. The cleaner said, But what if we have a trick up our sleeve? Officer Ma was stunned. He suddenly had a bad feeling. At the same time, the surroundings suddenly turned dark, and all the lights went out at this moment. Officer Ma reacted quickly and tried to catch the cleaner. However, he was lifted up in the stomach. Then, his partner bumped into him. Both of them fell to the ground at the same time. The power was cut off very quickly, but it was restored in just a few seconds. However, at both ends of the corridor, no one knew where the cleaner had run off to. There's a third one. Officer Ma stood up from the ground, cursing angrily. He chased after Jiang Chu. When he turned the corner at the end of the corridor, he saw his limbs lying on the ground. He covered his abdomen and was bleeding profusely. However, Jiang Chu was nowhere to be seen. Officer Ma looked around with confusion and shame. Where did Jiang Chu go? Jiang Chu didn't know where he was. An unprecedented fear shrouded him. This was the rooftop of the hospital, but he remembered clearly that he was in the corridor on the 7th floor. When he was about to enter his son's ward, the surroundings suddenly turned dark. He heard the groan of the plainclothes officer behind him. At this moment, Jiang Chu suddenly realized that Mr. Sun wouldn't let him go so easily. Perhaps he would die in the next second. But his son was right in front of him, separated only by a door. But he couldn't see him. A strong feeling of grief, indignation, and despair pushed Jiang Chu's emotions to the peak. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, and he appeared on the rooftop of the hospital. For example, a strange person appeared in front of Jiang Chu. A strange person wearing a clown mask and holding a black cane, as if he had been waiting for Jiang Chu for a long time. A strange person. Who are you? Are you also sent by Mr. Sun? Jiang Chu looked at the stranger in horror. Luoqiu looked quite calm under the mask. Dr. Jiang, shouldn't you already know who I am? Jiang Chu gave start. Luoqiu waved his cane. A black card slid out from Luoqiu's doctor gown and flew into Luoqiu's palm. Jiang Chu was absent-minded. The club, business, you're here for me? Luoqiu shook his head. I'm not here for you, but you want to see me. This black card sensed the most pressing thoughts in your heart, so it brought you to me. You can help me? Jiang Chu shivered. In just a few seconds, he had appeared on the rooftop. This sudden change, the appearance of this strange person wearing a clown mask, and the black card that flew out of his hand. Something inconceivable was happening to him right now. Really? I can buy anything? Jiang Chu swallowed his saliva and asked. Luoqiu said indifferently, Sure, but you have to be able to afford the value of the items you need. Jiang Chu hesitated. If I say that I want my son to be safe, can you do it? Luoqiu said, Yes. Jiang Chu kept silent for a while. What do I need to pay? Luoqiu said, Dr. Jiang, what else do you think you can pay? Well, maybe I should give you a hint. Love go little say do. Chu, first of all, if the black card didn't bring you here, theoretically you would be dead. Of course, you're our important customer, and we need to protect our customers, so we won't charge you anything. Looking at Jiang Chu's uneasy face, Luoqiu said directly, But you have to understand, Dr. Jiang, you're a dying man and you'll have nothing after you die. No need to say more. Jiang Chu suddenly took a deep breath. You're demons. I knew you were demons when I heard that voice. The most valuable thing should be my soul, right? For normal people, the most valuable thing is indeed the soul. Luoqiu didn't avoid this topic. Jiang Chu smiled bitterly. Only you guys who are like demons would fancy a dirty soul like me. Ha ha. He felt his knees in pain. His eyes were lifeless as he looked at the handcuffs on his hands. His hands trembled as he said hoarsely, I knew it. I knew it from the very beginning. When I used the scalpel to cut open the first person's body, I knew that I wouldn't have a good ending. Old man, men, women, vagrants, even orphans one after another. I can never forget the way they looked at me. He covered his face, crying bitterly. I had no choice. They said they could give me a bone marrow match. I can't let my son die. He's not even 11 years old. His life hasn't started yet. Even if my hands are stained with blood, I will use it to open a new life for him. Even if I have to go to hell, I dare. Mr. Sun lied to me. They lied to me. Retribution. Retribution. This is my retribution. Ha 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 ha. My soul, you can take it if you want. I don't know how many people I've harmed, and I know I can't repay them even if I die. But in the end, I still hope I can save the lives of those who deserve it. Luoqiu said, Tell me what you want. Jiang Chu said dispiritedly, I want my son. No, my son and his mother to be safe. I don't want them to be persecuted. In fact, I hope that you can bring Mr. Sun and his gang to justice. Luoqiu kept silent for a while. Sorry, Your soul isn't worth that much. The former or the latter? Jiang Chu smiled bitterly. Really? This dirty soul isn't worth much. Fine, then I'll take the former. As long as they are safe, I'm satisfied. Even if he didn't make the deal, his reputation would be ruined. Even if he was caught, Mr. Sun and his gang wouldn't let him go. This group of people was resourceful and had many ways to get him out of prison. Besides, his son wouldn't make it. His ex-wife would be grieving because of his son's death. It was the worst-case scenario. Then, if he could still get something back, there was no need to hesitate. He looked at Clown. Can I see my son one last time? Luocio nodded. With a wave of Black's cane, the two of them had arrived at a ward from the rooftop. Luocio tapped on Jiang Chu's ex-wife's shoulder with his cane. Seeing Jiang Chu become nervous, he said, Dr. Jiang, you don't want to be disturbed during your last farewell, right? Jiang Chu nodded and didn't say anything. He walked to the bedside and held his son's hand, placing it on his cheeks silently. He looked at his son in a daze. Luocio didn't have the slightest intention of urging him. He waited patiently in silence. Suddenly, Jiang Chu stood up with red eyes and kissed his son's forehead gently, murmuring, You will have a good life. Do you know that? I'm useless. I've done many wrong things. I'm sorry. He took a deep breath, looking at Luocio calmly. Can I go to this hospital for the last time? Yes. Luocio nodded. Jiang Chu was walking along the corridor of the hospital. Strangely, no one who walked past him seemed to be able to see him. He walked right in front of them. He knew it was the ability of the devil, so he didn't care about it. He walked past the emergency room. I hadn't graduated at that time and was assigned here for an internship. It was the old dean who took a fancy to me and sent me here after graduation. The calligraphy on the wall was written by me. It's been so many years, but it hasn't been taken down. Jiang Chu smiled, looking at these and talking about these things, as if he wanted Luocio, who would accompany him to the end of his life, not to feel too bored. Luocio suddenly asked, Dr. Jiang, if you could start your life over, would you still choose to help Mr. Sun? Jiang Chu stopped, thinking for a while. Yes, I would. But this time, I'll check whether the bone marrow matches, instead of blindly believing. Luocio nodded, saying suddenly, Time's up. Jiang Chu nodded, taking a deep breath. There was nothing to worry about. Suddenly, a nurse rushed in, asking hurriedly, Is Dr. Chen here? Dr. Chen? What's the matter? Dr. Huang was in the middle of an operation due to the power outage, but he was frightened and made a mistake. Although the power was restored immediately, Dr. Huang fainted due to excessive nervousness. The dean said the operation can't be stopped. Dr. Chen? Me? I'm just an intern. It's too late. The patient's family agreed. But where's Dr. Jiang? We can't find him. Hurry up. Hurry up. It's urgent. The nurse hurriedly pulled a young doctor out of the room and left in a flurry. Seeing all this happening before him, Jiang Chu smiled bitterly. Is it because I hurt another one? You should be the one to do the operation. Jiang Chu stared blankly at Luocio. An unprecedented impulse made him blurt out, Can you give me another 5 hours? No, for hours? Dean, I really can't do it. The young Dr. Chun was at a loss, standing beside the old dean. The old dean could only comfort him. Just do it boldly, or the patient will die. The situation is very dangerous now. I have no other choice, so you want me, a half-baked person, to take over? The young doctor was full of anger. The hospital could take over. Not including Jiang Chu, who couldn't be found, there were at least 1 or 2 doctors. Let me do it. Suddenly, a steady voice sounded, and the one who walked in was Jiang Chu in a white robe. His face was pale, but his eyes were the most spirited one the old dean had ever seen in so many years. Jiang Chu, you're not. The old dean seemed to know something, looking at Jiang Chu in surprise. Jiang Chu walked to the dean, saying softly, Teacher, I'm just a doctor now. Can I? The patient's family didn't want such a young doctor to take over, but they couldn't do anything about the hospital system. When the patient's grandfather saw that his old friend had found a young doctor to treat him, he was very upset. Seeing Jiang Chu, the original chief surgeon, he didn't want to say anything, but said directly, Dr. Jiang, I'm sorry about your child. But if you can save my granddaughter. Jiang Chu waved his hand. I just want to save her. I don't want to say too much. If it's possible, please let me in. Although he was asking to let him in, Jiang Chu had already walked straight to the operating room. The nurse in surgical gown hurriedly made way for him and said hurriedly, Dr. Jiang, let me disinfect your wound first. In the operating room, everything was so familiar. Jiang Chu held the scalpel without trembling, and his fingers even looked strong and powerful. He had never felt so energetic and focused before. He could not remember how long it had been since he was able to perform such a surgery on the operating table with the same focus as he was now. He didn't think about anything, but only hoped that every scalpel could land on the most precise spot. The scalpel seemed to have turned into a sharp sword, cutting off the rope that was supposed to drag this little life to death. One by one, he had already forgotten the passage of time. It was silent in the operating room, until a clank sound was heard, which was the sound of the metal tools Jiang Chu put on the tray. Jiang Chu heaved a long sigh, stopped the bleeding, and sutured the wound. Dr. Jiang, you are so awesome. So awesome. Dr. Jiang? Dr. Jiang? The moment Jiang Chu took off his mask, he slowly fell to the ground. There was a smile on his face, looking peaceful and satisfied. Is this Jiang Chu's soul? It's so beautiful. I thought it couldn't reach this level of purity. In the club, Yi held up a crystal box. Inside, there was a ball of light that was emitting a pink glow. It was so pure that there were no impurities in it. Luochio looked at the mobile phone he took from Jiang Chu, looking at the photo in the phone, saying softly, maybe it's because he got redemption in the end. I think he made a profit this time, and a lot, Yi said with a smile. Luochio suddenly said, yeah, it wasn't enough, but now it's enough. It's a pity that we didn't mention it before the deal. Luochio shook his head. Maybe it's because fate is fickle. Saying this, he dialed a number in the phone, but he immediately heard such a sentence. Sorry, the number you dialed is not in service. Luo Qi had to murmur so fast. Shaking his head, Luo Qi stood up, holding the crystal box in his hand. Yi asked, Master, are you going to sacrifice it? Store it. Yin PS1. This chapter has 5,000 words. Count it as 2 chapters today. PS2. Theoretically, there will be an update after midnight tonight, and the new book period is almost over. But I haven't shown my face in the top 12 of the new book list. Who can continue it for me? PS3. So what I want is to recommend and collect it. Chapter 45. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, /go, /little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Luochio? You must be Luochio. Boss Luo was suddenly stopped by someone. Basically, the probability of being stopped by someone in this place was quite low. But he was still stopped by someone. If you remember correctly, it should be his high school classmate. The period before the college entrance examination was the lowest period of Luo Chio's life. Therefore, after the college entrance examination, he basically lost contact with everyone in his class. He couldn't remember his name. Boss Luo could only nod and use the golden phrase of daily communication. So you came to this university too? Yeah. His former classmate was very enthusiastic as he approached him. I didn't expect to see you. Although I heard that you got in, it's not easy to not see you for so long. I'm majoring in paleontology. It's normal that I don't meet you. His classmate was curious. Paleontology? Our school has this major? Therefore, Boss Luo felt that he must have been bewitched to choose this major at the beginning. He was not interested in reminiscing, so he continued to use the golden phrase of interpersonal communication. Yes. Well, I'm about to go to class. Let's talk next time. Oh, okay. His classmate smiled and suddenly said, let's exchange numbers? Let's keep in touch. Luochio could not refuse such a reasonable request, so he could only exchange numbers and go their separate ways. Classmate A. Whatever. Because he really could not remember his classmate's name, Luochio simply recorded the name on his contact list and then walked towards the classroom. The last time he came to class was 10 days ago. This time, he did not come back to class because the class teacher was taking attendance, but because he received a message from Zhang Qingre. Luochio, let's go to class. It was a simple message. Zhang Qingrui arrived earlier than Luoqiu. At this time, she was already sitting in the classroom and leisurely eating the takeout breakfast. Because there were only 2 people in this class, even the act of opening the door was enough to attract the attention of the other person. Luoqiu, you're here. Zhang Qingrui raised her head and smiled at Luoqiu. Have you had breakfast? I can't finish it all by myself. Luoqiu shook his head and sat down 2 rows behind Zhang Qingrui. Out of curiosity, Luoqiu took the initiative to ask, why are you so proactive this time? Zhang Qingrui didn't even turn her head. She continued chewing the bun in her hand. Do you want to experience the life in the ivory tower? Or perhaps they felt that they were wasting their time in the past and didn't want to find that their university life was a blank slate when they looked back 10 or 20 years later. Maybe it's not a bad idea to start a relationship now. Puff, Luo Qi, who had just unscrewed the cap of the mineral water, immediately choked after taking a sip. Zhang Qingrui turned around and said angrily, what's the problem? So Luoqiu used the golden saying for the 3rd time today, nothing as long as you're happy. What? You don't think that's something I should say? Zhang Qingrui obviously didn't want to let go easily. Luoqiu stayed silent for a while before saying, I feel that you're more rational than emotional. Zhang Qingrui seemed to be a little different from the one he knew. She suddenly became more lively in both behavior and speech. Usually, people would become like this either because they encountered something particularly happy or because they encountered something particularly bad and carried out a form of self-protection. It was like telling others, I'm fine, the world is stable, blah, 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 blah. So in your opinion, I'm the kind of woman who's career-minded at such a young age? Seeing that Zhang Qingrui seemed to want to continue the topic, Luoqiu had to interrupt. The class bell rang. Why isn't the professor here yet? Zhang Qingrui stopped and said casually, probably because he didn't expect both of us to be here today. But if he's not here after class, I haven't been here for 2 weeks. Luoqiu, how many days have you been here? Today. Is it because the professor thinks we're hopeless, so he's not coming? The 2 didn't look at each other affectionately. Instead, they were both stunned. After a while of silence, Luoqiu stood up and was about to walk out of the classroom. Zhang Qingrui always thought that Luoqiu was the kind of person who would act on his decisions. For example, now that he knew the professor wouldn't come, he left without saying anything. Zhang Qingrui hesitated for a while before she packed up her things and said to herself, I didn't expect the first day of my ivory tower life to end in failure. She couldn't help but think about the agreement she made with her grandmother. This was the free time that she fought so hard to get. At least before graduation, she could do something she wanted to do. All of a sudden, time became precious. Zhang Qingrui, who didn't want to waste the first day, suddenly raised her voice. Luoqiu, wait a minute. What do you want? Don't always look like someone owes you thousands of yuan. Zhang Qingrui walked down the stairs quickly and came to Luoqiu, saying with a smile, since you're here, do you want to walk around? I need you. Luoqiu gave a start. He looked around and pointed at himself with a confused expression. Zhang Qingrui said happily, don't think too much. I just want you to do me a favor. We're classmates. You won't refuse such a small favor, right? No. Luoqiu suddenly said, I have something to do. I'm leaving. Zhang Qingrui gave a start. But Luoqiu suddenly walked out of the door without any intention of coming back. She couldn't help being curious. How did this guy make that beauty fall in love with him? Zhang Qingrui then shook her head. Why should I care so much about others? I should take care of myself for the next 2 or 3 years. When Boss Luo saw that there was no one in the corridor, he took a step forward and stepped on the floor of the rooftop of the teaching building. He looked at the campus below. The reason why he suddenly left was that he sensed the presence of a black soul envoy nearby. And this black soul envoy was Taiyinzi. Luo Qiu moved his mind, and in the blink of an eye, a phantom that was invisible to ordinary people slid up from below and finally converged into a phantom in front of Luo Qiu. Taiyinzi greets the master. Luo Qiu looked at Taiyinzi from head to toe, asking curiously, You said you're a fast learner, so she tried to let you go out? Is this the place you chose? Tianzi hurriedly said, "Yes, Black Soul number 9, who taught me, recommended this place to me with many people. She said it's more suitable for a newbie like me. I didn't know the master was here." "I'm studying here," Luochio said indifferently. Then Luochio asked curiously, "How long have you been here?" Tianzi said, "Several hours." Luochio said, "Have you found anything?" Tianzi said, "Master, I've already found a suitable financial backer. This person's desire is very strong. From his appearance, he's narrow-minded and vicious. It should be very easy to bewitch him." This was much more interesting than accompanying Zhang Qingrui to tour the garden. Luochio smiled. "Then take me to see him. Yin yin, yin yin PS1. Please vote. PS2. If I can't pass the 12th goalkeeper of the new book list this week, then I'll have to pass the new book list and completely become a salted fish. PS3. So, PS2 exists because I want to tell you, I'm actually still asking for your recommendation."